sure.
Right. We're live.
All right, I'm recording.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the
Why
American
did they
Greed
do it
Factory.
cheer perversity?
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
We've got a lot of stuff going on in America right now. None of it good. Let's see. So, I guess topping all the headlines, we have the building collapse in Florida, in Miami, which is becoming more and more ugly as time goes on because it looks like, I don't know, like 160 people dead. And apparently there's no, there was all kinds of warnings that there was a problem with this building. But it felt like 1 a.m, so everyone was home. Like
Jesus.
the worst thing that could happen. And yeah, so it was terrible. And it's a mixture of young people, old people, kids. It's all the worst stuff.
My nightmare is that, remember that Minnesota bridge collapsed?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's like a nightmare. Like you ever cross a bridge at night and they don't have like lights on the bridge?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And all you can imagine is just a span missing on that bridge, and it's the most terrifying thing in the world.
Yeah, like all of a sudden you could just be, gravity will fail and you'll just start falling. You don't know what the fuck's happening and you'll be dead. You still won't know. Especially in winter, going to the frozen Mississippi River, like just bust through the ice. Like what had just happened? Like you're having an angry phone conversation with someone in your car, and the next thing you know, you're in hypothermia, suffocating in a car that's sailing off a bridge. Yeah, you wouldn't think that stuff would happen, but it does all the time.
Yeah.
Now they did pass the infrastructure package.
Yeah. There's that.
I don't
So that'll take what, a 15-year delay till that starts happening?
Well, I don't know. Maybe they'll re-filibuster it, or
Yeah, that's true. That's right.
or they'll analyze like what roads do me and my family drive on. The lawmakers. It's like, well, we'll just fix those.
Yeah, it'll end up in the courts somehow. And then the conservative judges will vote it down. It's like,
Yeah.
Americans need to help themselves.
Build your own bridge, you lazy assholes. This is not a free ride. The gravy train is over in America. You need to get out there and start pouring cement, or however you figure out how to build a bridge. I don't know. Make it out of plaster. That's what they do in China. See what happens.
We stopped playing the civil engineers. They cost too much.
Yeah. How am I going to get, have my 4th yacht?
There's got to be a YouTube video out there.
Yeah. Just figure out, build your own bridge day. I want to see that like inspiring Republican libertarian ad. It's like a little kid in a hard hat. It's like what was his name? Like Castro would go out in the sugarcane fields and harvest the sugar canes with the peasants when he took over Cuba and stuff. It's like, yeah, we're just going to get out and build our own roads because some billionaire doesn't want to pay an extra $500 a year in taxes. And be horrified when like both parties, like, this is why I'm politically agnostic anymore. It's just like that Voting Rights Act. They tried to pass that thing to basically derail all this stuff in all these states where basically poor people and minorities can't vote anymore because the Republicans are passing weird laws.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, the Democrats just couldn't get it over the line, and it's like because they're afraid of a filibuster. It's like, go ahead and filibuster. Let turn off the bathrooms and let whoever's going to filibuster just keep talking. Let the place become just filled with sewage.
Oh man, did you see Matt Gates like lose his fucking mind at a general?
No. Isn't he the one that's in trouble for all the weird sex stuff?
Yeah.
What did they call him? Oh. Somebody had a great line, and I think it was Red Letter Media. It was like why Tig Notaro was CG'd into that zombie movie. Because the other guy, what did they call him? A sex bug or a sex pest. Sex pest. That was it. So yeah, isn't Matt Gates also a sex pest? Like he can't control his. But what was he screaming at a general about?
Oh, they were interviewing the general, and the general was talking about like. What were they? It was like essentially like they're trying to grill him about being woke, and then it was like the general gave like this answer. Oh, it was what they call it? Critical race theory, which I don't know what the fuck that is.
It's something I could ask my son. It's something in the colleges now, I guess. I don't know.
But it's basically about like teaching what like institutionalized racism is, and people just want to like say like that doesn't happen.
Oh yeah, because that's not real. Yeah,
and
like, but I'm no liberal, and I know that I've seen it.
And so like Matt Gates is like, oh, this guy's a general, he's on my side, like he doesn't want to bother with this bullshit. And the general was like, no, I want to know what this is about. Like, yeah, we're gonna teach this in the military. And he was just like, he just loses his mind making faces like, well, apparently that's all you do for your constituency is just make faces.
Yeah. And try to fuck them out of their social security. Or whatever.
You're gonna pay for my underage prostitute, Florida.
Yeah, he's on our side. He doesn't like the critical race theory, and because we don't want black people to vote, but we can't say that out loud, so we go to Matt Getz. And even though he's having sex with these people are like underage, this isn't like harassment stuff. This is like sex with teenagers. Like,
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
What you saying? You saying a child can't open up a lemonade stand? It's like this is sex with a minor, not a lemonade stand.
Yeah. This is entrepreneurial 101. This is taking what you have and doing your best with it. That's the American dream. Don't you know? These kids are learning the lessons. It's what made this country great in the 1890s when we had 14-year-old prostitutes. They weren't asking for a handout.
They were given one.
Yeah. These fucking people are deranged enough to believe stuff like that. He's right. Well, I mean, not for their kids, but for everyone else, it's like, yeah, prostitute your kids out to this guy. Does Matt Getz not get why a general would be interested in that, though? Does he not understand, like, minorities make up a large part of our armed forces? And
yeah.
Does he just think it's a bunch of white Nazi guys marching around? Is that
probably? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, like, all he has to do is, like, listen for the answer that's not going his way and just make faces and then, like, see, he's on our side.
Yeah, I forget this. Sometimes I forget this is all a show, and I'm like, why you're being irrational? Why are you doing this? Oh, yeah, because it's a fucking joke. That's right. I forgot.
But yeah, I mean, the military is, like, wildly interesting with that stuff because it is one of the few places where it's like you can succeed purely on merit, and race it's not a thing, but you can succeed purely on your merit. Yeah. And I mean, there still is racism, but there is less so in the military than in other sectors. Because, in the military, you can't just give your son a job.
Yeah, not as much nepotism. It's like institutional nepotism, but not structural nepotism.
And it's not like there's not racism in the military. There's surely is, but it's just like it has less of a chance to like take hold and be pervasive throughout because there's just constant turnover.
Yeah.
And also there's so many of the leaders are of various backgrounds that it just kind of that stuff isn't as effective, but it's still still there. So.
Well, it's just that's such a micro part of America. Like this is like because you were telling me like you got people from not only people from other ethnicities, people from other countries in our military just showing up. Like I'm here. Okay, here's a gun. do your thing or whatever they're doing. But it's like, well, I didn't know there were people from other countries till you told me about it. And then I've started reading I've read books, and it's like, oh, this guy's from Brazil. It's like, oh, that's interesting. But he's like in the Marines or something. Like, huh. So yeah, I don't know. It's all that stuff is so. The stuff with our politicians, especially these right-wing politicians that are like they're expecting things. Like they have some weird concept of like every general or anyone in the Pentagon is on their side. And they're not like wrong to think that, because when it comes to like defense spending and allocation, he's like, yeah, that tends to be true. But when you're talking about, I mean, they like expect people to like, you need to get out there and fight for Trump and the stolen election. It's like, no, they don't believe you. The people run it. The people in charge don't believe you. I don't know what the guys lower down the pyramid believe, but I've never heard any general that's like currently in charge or any senior official be like, yeah, we need to really look into this election thing. No, I haven't heard that. But these people seem to think it's like there's some well of support out there for. They're just waiting for us to make the first move. It's like, well, yeah, they are, but not in the way you're thinking. They're waiting for you to make a move, all right, but they're not going to be there to assist you. But I don't know. Then you hear weird stuff. So, excuse my compressed air. I was working on a grass feature for one of my Chernobyl dioramas, and that stuff is a mess. It did look cool when it was done, but it's like, wow, it's just like, it's made to look like grass in 1/35 scale, which means it's just little tiny ground up chunks of green stuff. And you put it on like powder and you put it over glue, and then you have a lot of excess.
Is that a new technique or just something you've...
Something I'm trying. Well, I always, on the Chernobyl models, I always try to do a physical feature.
Yeah.
So like, let me see. So you see, this is just basically a static background with men standing around. I don't know how well you can see that. So I put like real grass. The glue's drying, so it looks a little white now. But once it dries clear, and that'll just look like grass. So, but that gives it a little more
lift up
depth.
higher. I can't really see the grass too much. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's it. Kind of makes it less just a static 2D thing with just men on it. It's kind of I always do something in each one of these. And there's one of these I'm bypassing because it's just a bunch of people getting on buses, and it's like, well, I'm not interested in that because it doesn't even come with a bus model. It's like, okay.
Oh, okay. It's just a bus stop.
Yeah. Just one of these.
Get your own Chernobyl bus stop.
But I mean, they only cost $20. Like they're not
Yeah.
horribly expensive, because the ones that come with like an actual model, like those are $90 or something. But so yeah, I've started adding like 3D physical characteristics just to give them a little bump. Do something different. But yeah, I've never done artificial grass diorama before, and it's a mess. I mean, they have the nice stuff you can buy and unroll, and it's just like it's got adhesive on the back, and you just put it down. It's like instant diorama, but that's like $40 a sheet. It's like, I'm gonna try the $3 stuff first. So yeah, I have to be budget minded.
So I guess speaking of budget, I got a bidet.
Oh, like a toilet?
Yeah, it's one you attach to the toilet. Yeah.
Oh, what do you think of that?
That's good.
Does it work good?
Yeah, it's a. So do you know what the Amazon treasure truck is?
No, never heard of that.
So this is something that they had in big cities where it'd be like really like very in demand items, and they just have like a truck full of the item, and they'd go around and they'd be like, the treasure truck's here, and you just like go up to the truck and get something. And it'd be hard to get stuff. So now they've opened it up in Cedar Rapids, but it's not the physical truck. It's just kind of a deal you get. And so they had the bidets, which, during the pandemic, like they were hard to get, especially the cheaper ones. Like if you want a $300 bidet, you can get that like no problem. But,
Yeah.
but they are selling this one for like $23. It's like, fuck it. Pick it up. And it's like stupid simple to install. Like you're just putting a valve in, like,
Yeah.
and it's splitting it off. And the only thing that's kind of weird is like where it sits on the toilet, it like kind of cuts off like the back eighth of the toilet with this like straight like flat piece that goes across. But it's like, that's fine. What's really cool is it's like there's no it's not electrical powered. It's all powered by water pressure. And
okay.
So there's like two sprayers that come down for like different purposes. Like one's just for your butt, and other one's like for feminine care or something.
Okay.
They seem to do the same thing. I don't know. I guess they're just aimed slightly differently. But like they're retracted into it, and once the pressure goes to it, they come down out, and then they spray out.
Huh.
So they're retracted the entire time before they use them, and they come down. And it's all pressure activated by water pressure. So I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. Because and it has a lot of pressure to it. Because like the first time I was like, I'm gonna test this out, and it like shot into the wall.
It's working.
So yeah, I think I've used one roll of toilet paper in the past month. So
That's toilet paper is expensive. Even the cheap shit I buy.
But yeah, so yeah, that's one of the cheap ones. There's just water pressure, and it's like pretty simple to put together. But if you want like those like Japanese ones where it's like the heated, you want to choose the water temperature that gets sprayed. You want a heated, warm seat to sit on. And you want to sing music to you. Like yeah, they got those ones too. So.
I want the one from Family Guy where you flush the toilet and it goes yum 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 yum.
Pretty sure you can get that to happen.
Yeah, I'm sure the Japanese will make that. I like the Japanese incinerator toilet
Oh yeah. I
that
think you were
they
talking
had
about
on construction sites, where you just put down a piece. It's totally dry. There's no water. You put down a piece of paper. Number 2, and then you press a button, and the paper is like designed in a certain way. A flap opens, and it goes down inside there, and then it's like it just burns it. But it has a calculated burn time based on the weight that hit the plate. And then it's just all ash. And then the guy empties the ash can at the end of the day. That sounds wildly inefficient, yet cool at the same time.
I don't know. Have you ever I don't think I've seen it. They exist, right? But there's like these trash incinerator like power plants.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just power plants that just incinerate trash, and that's how they generate power. It's like, Jesus Christ, do we have that much trash?
Dad built one of those as a prototype in the 80s.
Huh.
We lived in New York when you were born. Yeah, that's it's not it's not what I'd call environmentally friendly, but one way to get rid of trash. I think they burn a lot of cardboard.
Yeah, it's separated. They don't just throw a block of trash in there. It's like, let's see what happens. Hopefully nobody threw away anything volatile.
Car batteries.
Just inject that into the atmosphere.
Well, it's like today I was filling up at the gas station, and the lady had to go out, and apparently, and gas is like $3 and something a gallon here, and the lady had to go out, and she had like all this equipment with her, because when they filled the ground tank, it must have overfilled into the well, and she was just sucking the gas out with this thing and putting it in a bucket full of like kitty litter or whatever. And I was about to go over there and be like, come over here, suck that out and put it into my car, because it was like the plunger was like this long and about that thick, and it was filling up with gas. I'm like,
so I'm just imagining a comically large syringe.
Yeah, essentially is what it was, with like a rubber tip. And I was just like, no, don't waste that. Bring that over here. But I'm sure it's like contaminated with rust.
Yeah.
So it probably wouldn't be good to run through the car. But, yes, we're under the we're doing the drive along thing with our car insurance company now, all 3 of us. So now we have those little monitor tags in our window. So if you drive well enough, it lowers your insurance rate.
Oh, okay.
It only does a 90-day snapshot, and then that's your permanent rate for however many years you have the policy. But it also, under Michigan law, they have to tell you on your phone how you're doing. And Stacy and Grayson, they're doing great. They're all smiley faces. Me, not so much. And I don't drive recklessly, I don't think. But apparently, I mean, it's not telling me I'm bad, but it's telling me you don't need to accelerate so fast, and you don't need to slow down, as hard. And it's like, oh, really? I'm just driving my car. Wait till I start going to work. Ah!
doesn't monitor screaming.
Well,
Oh,
she
thank
did-
God.
The lady told me, she was like, and for you, Nathan, it doesn't monitor how fast you go. It just monitors your braking and acceleration. It's like, oh, okay, good. Because I was the one who complained, like the cruise control doesn't come on after 85. It's like, that's no good. That's like, that was on my Harley, though. I think cars do. But, yeah, so we're trying that out because we added it up, and we were between all our insurance policies, auto, home, and everything. We were paying $12,000 a year for insurance. So, well, Michigan is the highest car insurance in the country.
Yeah, you've told me
It was $690 a month for me to have car insurance on all three of us for years. So that adds up. It's well, and it's because we got unlimited lawsuit liability here and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So that's why, because we have the injury attorneys all over the place. There was a guy at work who got hit on the freeway and had to go to the hospital, and he had like a broken collarbone or something. And when he was in the hospital bed, one of these guys showed up. It's like, hey, did you get hit in the freeway? And he's like, who are you? Oh, I'm so and so. I represent. He's like, get out. What are you doing? It's just like, how long are you going to be off work? I can get you all that money back. It's like, my work takes care of that. I actually have a decent job, so. But yeah, I mean, it's just, there are just literally ambulance chasers here. So that's why our car insurance is so high. It's unlimited liability, which they say is to help people, but it's like, yeah, someone gets in a car wreck and is wearing a neck brace and they have a bunch of, it's like, oh yeah, I can't work anymore. My neck doesn't work. And you look at their history and they've had like 19 workman comp cases in the last 20 years. It's like, yeah, let's give him $20 million. I'll be glad to pay for that, because that's totally legit, right? Or is this the one accident that screwed him up and all the other stuff was just being fake? Some cases it's terrible and people need the help, but there's a lot of people who, if some guy sits down in a room with you and no one's recording, it's like, hey, do you want $3 million? It's like, yes. Well, this is what you have to do. And it's like, I'm going to get more than half of that, but you're going to get like $1 million. So I always wondered, like, how do people have these wildly expensive cars but no discernible income? And I started to find out, oh, this is from car crash stuff. Okay. It's like, how do you have a Lincoln Navigator? I couldn't afford that, and I worked my ass off. Well, it's easy. You got to get in a fender bender and then claim you can't walk. It's like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, I get it. So I am paying for that Lincoln Navigator, just not getting use of it.
So do I have to like fully commit, or can I still walk again? It's like, oh, you can walk again.
Yeah, once the money's paid out, you can jump out of that wheelchair and get a fucking tent revival. I'm healed. It's a great country. This is a wonderful place.
Oh, at least it's not Russia.
Yeah, it's for all our problems. We don't live in Russia.
Oh, you ever see those like people that just hopping in front of cars in Russia?
Oh yeah,
because like
What?
now everybody has dash cams, and so they just have that stuff. And
You know why the real reason why they got those dash cams is because when the police were pulling them over, they were telling them, well, you either give me like 100 rubles or something, or I'm going to say you're driving drunk, or this is going to get really expensive for you. So they started putting those cameras in because they audio record too, and the cops had to stop shaking down the people. I'm going to get one of those cameras too. I'm going to start a YouTube channel called 94. This is just what I'm going to. I don't actually see a lot of accidents, but I see the results of them. Like the one day I was driving, I was talking to Dad, and I was like, "Oh, look, an engine on fire!" And then the car is like 500 feet down. That's really wild. How is that engine on fire? Yeah, I've seen all those things. Tires bouncing down the road. That's always fun. Usually they're not whole tires. They're just like the retreads that blow off the semis. But if they blow off perfectly, they're still a circle enough.
yeah,
You'll be driving along. It's like, whoa, where's it going?
it's just coming along for the ride.
Yeah, it's following me like a lost dog. You ever heard one of those blow?
No.
Oh my God! You think you're getting shot at because those car haulers that come out of the plant all the time. For some reason, I don't know. They just buy the cheapest tires they can, because those car haulers are all independent companies or whatever. I've heard those 3 or 4 times because when they come up that ramp and they hit that curve and all the weight starts settling to one side, it'll sound like a gunshot. It's like, oh, meow. You'll hear that sound. Like, what the hell? And then you look and see one of these. And sometimes I'll just pull on the freeway and keep going. They're like, well, I got 6 more. 5 left. So
We got backups.
yeah. That's why I put all those tires on these trucks, don't you know? It's like, no, I think that's for weight distribution, but okay. It's your life.
What do I know? I'm an independent contractor.
Yeah, I just get paid by the mile, man. They don't say everyone has to be alive when we get there. It's just-
And I'm the only one that could die, so.
yeah. Or the people on the road. Well, the
They're not worried about that.
let's just keep on trucking. They'll get their settlements. Did I tell you about the one I saw where the car? This wasn't like F-150s. This was another company, but like there was all these cops around it, and it was pulled over, and the structure inside the car carrier had collapsed, so it crushed down on the 2 cars underneath, and then the third one on top was like off the side, like the whole back of it was off the truck. Like it was about ready to go over. Can you imagine being behind that?
Bad Boys 2.
Yeah, what's going to happen here? But I've got to be careful. I can't accelerate or brake too quickly, so how am I going to get away from this? It's like driving school again.
Well, speaking of racing, have some F1 updates and IndyCar updates.
All right, let's get into it.
Guess we'll do IndyCar first. They had the Road America race, which I think is in Wisconsin. Not
Sounds
sure.
about right.
This is where Magnussen got to do his F1 or his IndyCar debut, because of all the people that are out of this race for injuries. Fun thing about Kevin Magnussen, do you know in his first F1 race he got a podium?
Really?
Yep, he came in second.
That's horrific.
He was driving for McLaren. It was the first year of the turbo hybrid cars.
Okay.
And so like Vettel and Lewis Hamilton like retired like within 5 laps because their cars were just fucked.
Yeah.
And then Kevin Magnussen, believe he came in third, but because of penalties, he was awarded second place.
Okay.
And then he never got a podium ever again.
That one. He was like, this is where it starts. Nope. This is where it ends.
Yeah, I also had that. He also had a weird thing because he was driving for McLaren, and then like the later that year, or at the end of the year, like the Fernando Alonso was driving for Ferrari, and Ferrari was going to get rid of Fernando Alonso and get Sebastian Vettel in. And then so McLaren's like, oh shit, we should get Fernando Alonso. It's like, well, who are we kicking out? It's like, let's kick out the kid that got a podium. So Kevin Magnussen got kicked out of there. And then he was for Renault for a while, and then he ended up at Haas, and then out of Haas. So does that magic happen? Does in his first IndyCar race, does he get a podium? No. He did lead the race for a while. He qualified in 21st place. And then how the race was shaking out, he had pitted a couple times because of the various safety cars, and so at one point there's like, just stay it out. So he was actually like leading the race for like 7 laps, which was that's kind of fun. And then he came in again for a pit, and then when he went out, like the car just like turned off in the middle, and I just had to pull over to the side of the road, and then like once those cars stop, like you can't start them up again. There are like certain ways where like if you're like you can get like your pit crew out there and they can get that starter, because they don't have internal starters, they have an external starter to start the car. There are some times where they can get people out there and they can start your car up again, but they just retired. So
yeah, it's not exactly like a good team job day for the pit crew. Run across that racetrack, go start that car. And then, never mind, these cars are going 200 miles an hour consistently. Is he far enough away? No, okay, no, he isn't.
But Grosjean had a hell of a race. He had like 12 on-track passes for position.
Okay.
And he qualified 5th place. It's like, well, why does he have to pass so many people? Well, his pit crew kind of fucked him. So, every time he came in for a pit, while other pit crews are doing like 6 and 7 second pit stops, his was doing 9. So he was always coming out behind people, and he was passing them on track. So it was a really cool race. I think he only came up in 5th, but like his race was like far more exciting than that. But
yeah.
his ability, like he probably should have been on podium or even a win. But I don't know, they'll work on that. I also saw like a little mini documentary about IndyCar pit crews, and it's like wildly fascinating.
Oh yeah.
So this one, they were covering the pit crews for Chip Ganassi Racing, and they have a lot of cars. Like I think they have like 4 or 5 cars.
Yeah.
They're also a championship team, so they got a lot of money. And but like when I see like because I also saw a Red Bull documentary about their pit crew, and they're all kind of like svelte Europeans. They're all fit and everything, and they're like, yeah, look at the 2-second pit stop, and they're like, but like with these guys, they're like all Americans, so they're all kind of like overweight and stuff. And it's like kind of sad. But then when you see like their training regimen, like those Red Bull guys are not doing fucking nearly what these guys are doing.
Yeah. These guys are big for a reason.
Yeah, like some of them, yeah, they're just big because you can only have 6 people over the wall. So that means like the tire person has to take off the tire and put on a new tire, and some of them are strong enough that like 1 tire per hand. Like that's the fuck what they're doing.
Basketball on those tires over that wall.
But like some people, like they had like a rookie, so he's smaller, so he's basically got 2-hand everything, and he's kind of working on technique. And a lot of it is just like he was trying too hard and fucking up, but like when he was kind of slowing it down, it's like there you go. It was that whole mantra of like slow, smooth is fast. It's like oh yeah. But yeah, like they have like like all these like training, and even though like they're kind of overweight, like they do like they're fucking doing like football like pushing sleds and stuff. They got all these like hand-eye coordination drills and stuff that like I see F1 drivers doing, like not the pit crew, the fucking drivers. These guys are doing that. They had this wild one where they put these special glasses on you that make a strobe effect. So like you only see like every other second, and you have to like put the tire on while doing that. And so it's like kind of like simulating like a stressful situation or blinking a lot, all that. And so they're trying to induce enough stress to try to get you like used to that, so that like putting on the tires like the simplest thing you could do. It's like, wow, it's like they got to do a fucking lot, and they look far more like what the stuff they had to do like look far more amazing than what the Red Bull guys do. Even though you look at the Red Bull guys and it's like amazing results, but like they can put like 20 people on one car, so there's a difference to it. There's also
I always like the fuel toppers. You don't see those anymore, but that had to be like the worst fucking job on the team. You're just going out there with this big thing of fuel and pulling a lever, and it's like, hope it's lined up. Oh shit, it's not.
Well, I mean, they got an IndyCar. They got the fuelers too, and like I guess that's the one thing.
IndyCar's still fueling this.
Yeah. But like the thing with that stuff, like I guess the thing for the pit crew that put on the tires, like the thing they want to do is like they want to get the tire done before the fueling's done, because if you fuck that up, it's like, oh, I fucked up. But if you're before that, it's like, all right, everything's good. So the medium pit time for like IndyCar is like 7 seconds, and like this crew is like usually below that, so it's like 6. I'm not sure if anyone's getting out of 5, but like a 6-second pit stop's really good.
Now, does IndyCar use the Uninut also?
Yes, but I don't. I think it's different because because I don't know, maybe it was different with the IndyCar race because that guy's tire flew off, and I know like with F1 cars, like even if you fuck up putting the tire on, that nut will still like keep the tire on the car unless you crash. But here so it must be slightly different, but yeah, it's one nut to put on the car.
So I know NASCAR is still like the multiples, right?
I think they're going to switch over when they're with their next. I think they're going to switch over with their next design of the car. Yeah. Which I've seen some stuff out there and it looks pretty neat. I mean, they basically just look like modern Camaros, but it's still cool.
Yeah. What a we race in NASCAR. So we don't have the Taurus anymore. Is it the Fusion?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's the Fusion.
at least it was, as far as I know.
I remember. Well, I remember at one time, like we used to get guys in the plant, like meet Dale Jarrett outside the plant. He'd show up with his car, and you could shake hands with him. And you don't see that anymore. But I don't know why. But they used to have people there. They had the Bronco people at our plant this week, driving the new full-size Broncos around. You could look at them, but only if you were walking out. It's like, hey, you want to look at this? No, I want to go home. But it's a cool truck thing there. I like it, but I'm going home. Want to sit in it? No. They got big, wide tires on them, though. Wow.
Yeah.
Would not want to replace a set of those tires. I don't know what those cost, but those don't look like any other tire I've ever seen. So they're like low profile, but wide.
Yeah.
But they look bouncy, too.
Huh. Yeah, that's the tire that F1's going to next year is low profile and wide. And it's bigger, too. It's 18-inch rims. If you look at the F2 car, it's kind of, I think the F2 cars run those tires or something similar to it.
Okay.
They actually look cooler. I don't know. But, yeah, whatever. What else happened with the race? I think it was the IndyCar has a pretty good YouTube page where like immediately following the race they'll have like a 6 to 10 minute like highlight of the race, and then the next day they'll have like a half hour highlight of the race. And like I've been hearing a lot of bad things about their TV production. Like, I guess they fucked up the last 2 times the start of the race. Like, they missed the start of the race twice in a row.
Wow, you think that's, I could see some interstitial stuff going wrong, but you think the start of the race you'd be on top of that.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe they fucked up because, IndyCar has rolling starts, but I'm not sure when they don't do them. I think it might be track specific, but... so the next day they'll have a half hour highlight of the race. So you kind of get like all you need to see in like half an hour and no commercials. And so it's actually like a great way to watch the race without watching the race.
Yeah. Unless you have 3 hours on,
Yeah.
watch a 1 hour race.
And then Alex Palou won, so now he leads the championship because he won the first race of the year. He also came in second at Indianapolis 500, so that's like double points. So he's ahead of Pato O'Ward right now. Who it was interesting to see the Pato O'Ward. He came in 10th, and like there's some of the radio calls they were doing. Apparently their Chevy engine was having trouble because this is like one of the longer tracks on the season, so they're having trouble with like fuel management. And so, like, he wanted to attack as much as possible, but he's like, dude, you're going to run out of fuel. You got to hold off. So he's doing all lift and coasting to save on fuel, and he couldn't really attack to get up there. But he still, I think, came in 10th or something like that, or 9th. There's also, like, there's like Michelin did something with Grosjean and Magnussen where they're talking. It was at the Detroit race when they were talking, and it was fun listening to them talk about, like, comparing these races to F1. And the interesting thing is, he's like, yeah, these cars are different. Like, and they're like, but their thing about F1 is like, F1 is like, the pinnacle, but they're also like, those F1 cars are so easy to drive compared to these things.
Yeah.
And that was like kind of the weird thing. Like, even the Haas, they drive so much easier than these other cars. And like one of the things like Grosjean was talking about is like when he did IndyCar, like he went out there during practice, one of his first practices, and he did like a real smooth line like he would do in F1. It was like everything was smooth and nice, and then came, it was like, and his engineer's like, yeah, you're 3 seconds off the pace. He's like, what the fuck? And then he's like, realized like, oh, you just got to get sideways with the car. You got to be real uncomfortable to get every bit out of this.
Yeah, Indy cars are that's kind of a crude beast compared to F1, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Muscling an overpowered car around a track.
Yeah, also So they always say they don't have power steering, but they kind of do. Like, is the opposite of progressive? Is that degressive?
No, what's that called? Because your regular cars have that too. What's that called?
But it's like degressive power steering, in that when you're at low speed, you have power steering, but once you get up to speed, like that hydraulic system is just shut off, and then there's no power steering at that point.
Yeah, my car is like that.
Okay.
I have power steering at low speeds, but because I have an electric, well, what do the new cars have? It's electric power steering, and I think an electric water pump too. But anything to reduce drag on the engine. Because even like my air conditioning, you can hear it clicks. Like if you put it on max AC, it's like, it's just, the ratio is like it's spinning the compressor as hard as it can. But if you're just cruising down the highway and you turn it on low AC, it'll like click, click, click. It goes way down. So yeah, so that's what is the damn term for that? Because I know like Ford perfected that because it was something they used to decrease torque steer on their front wheel drive cars, where they just had like the progressive power steering or something. But there is a word for that, and I can't remember it. Yeah.
But yeah, if you've ever driven a car without power steering, it sucks to drive it at low speeds. And then when you get up to high speeds, it's fine.
Gonna muscle that thing around.
But yeah, Magnuson was like looking at Grosjean's arms, like, oh shit, do you really have to work out to drive these cars? Like, oh yeah. But yeah, the McLaren has two different like things on their YouTube channels. They have, it's called Unboxed, and that's like their F1 look, where they kind of like, it's their internal look at like the recent race or whatever. And then for their IndyCar, it's called Unlocked, and so those are pretty good. Like those are more forthright, because like there's another one that gets suggested to me on YouTube, and it's like all the Aston Martin ones for F1, and there's the one. Those ones are kind of interesting because they follow around like different people around the team. There's one where they followed around the cook for the team. It's like, oh, this is weird.
Team Cook.
Yeah. And that was the Baku one. And so remember like the Lance Stroll had the blowout on his tire, and he like crashed in the middle of the straight. And so in that segment never comes up at all during their video overview of the race. It's just all of a sudden you see Lance Stroll talking to his dad. It's like, oh, what happened? Like, oh, we don't know. But at least the McLaren ones, like if they have a wreck or something, like they'll comment on it and talk about it. It's not just like, state secrets or anything like that. But it still is, their own propaganda. But
yeah, they make it fun at least.
Yeah. It's meant to be fun and kind of engaging. So. So yeah, it looks like Magnuson might be, looking for an IndyCar seat. He's already, so with his IMSA racing, the Cadillac team his team is run by Chip Ganassi Racing. So he always kind of has an in, and we'll see if Jimmy Johnson wants to keep going with IndyCar, because he's not very good.
Maybe this isn't a good fit for him.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I read an article where it explained actually how well he is progressing through the season, but every time you see him on track, it's like he's always getting lapped, or he's going off track, or he's spinning. But when that happens, you got to put the camera on it. So what are you gonna not look at Jimmy Johnson spin his car around? But it's also just kind of fascinating that someone who is a 7-time world champ in NASCAR, imagine if everything you did to perfection and you were the best in your field at it, and none of it translates to your next job.
I can do this. Nope. We don't do it that way here.
So I'm kind of wondering, if Jimmy Johnson doesn't want to race because he races for Chip Ganassi Racing, if they'll throw Kevin Magnuson in that seat, or if another team will give him a ride. I don't know. That'd just be cool. Have all the have the Haas boys in IndyCar enjoying themselves. Like, oh wow, we have a chance to get on the podium.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when they do the F1 qualifying stuff. It's like, oh, it looks like a Haas car might qualify. No. Are they going to go top 10 qualify? No. Oh, so close.
It's even worse this year, but yeah.
Ferrari's not great either. So.
Yeah. We talk about. Yeah, I guess we can switch over to F1. So you had the French Grand Prix.
Yep.
Which is, I preface you by saying sometimes the French Grand Prix sucks, and this one was pretty good.
Yeah.
you got to see a lot of strategy calls going on, and this time it worked the opposite way. Where usually Lewis Hamilton's doing the I'll do a second pit stop and then spend the rest of the race chasing you down. And like, yeah, it was pretty crazy because Max Verstappen passes Lewis Hamilton, and like literally Lewis Hamilton, if it just had two more minutes, he would have won the race. Like Max Verstappen passed him with a lap and a half to go.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting too.
Yeah.
Because they were like wheel to wheel passing for that one. Like,
Yeah, and they passed like near the grandstand, and all the French fans just started going crazy. It's like,
oh yeah, you could. I've never heard the crowd as clearly as when that happened.
Yeah,
everyone was like, yeah.
But yeah, that was a pretty cool one. But yeah, the Ferraris were nowhere, and I guess what's going on there, at least what I've read in some articles, because you never really know. It's just all speculation. Yeah. Even the teams really don't know. That was the fun thing I was thinking about. Remember I was telling you about like Alpine racing, like, oh, we're doing really good. We have no idea why. It was like, I was thinking about it. It's like, oh, does that mean that cheating's working and you can't tell anybody that?
Well, you really don't know. Which is scary for another reason, but yes, the go fast strategy seems to be working. Right, guys? Everyone just nods at the same time. Yes.
So like we've talked about like the advantages of the Ferrari this year, that they're the best in the slow speed corners. They're also, what that entails too is that they're the best at getting heat into their tires very quickly.
Yeah.
And now that the Pirelli is making everyone increase the PSI on the tires to make sure that they're stronger and so they don't blow up. Yeah. Apparently that's fucking Ferrari, because that's just like it's putting too much heat in the tire and like they're just falling apart during the race.
Oh.
At least that's what they think. And so yeah, with this race, with the higher PSI, and the track seemed to be like pretty hard on the tires in general, and so yeah, neither Ferrari finished in the points, which I think it's the first time this year that's happened. Also, like, it's actually not that interesting, but it's the point. Like, there's an F1 podcast I listen to, and like sometimes they always end the podcast with like, all right, we need a prediction, and it has to be like something like kind of bold. Like he's like, yeah, you can't just like say like, I bet Max wins. Like you have to say something that's kind of like unusual. And the guy just made it offhand. It's like, no DNFs. That's what's gonna happen. And then like, that's what happened. And I guess that's only the 10th race in the entire history of F1 that there's been no DNFs in a race. There's even the race just happened so without any hassle, so much that there wasn't even a yellow flag during the race. Like,
yeah, this seemed to be a pretty symmetrical race as I watched it. It was like, yeah, there wasn't a lot of accidents or anything.
Yeah, but I can't remember any of the midfield stuff. Oh yeah, that was the thing about like George Russell. He came in 12th, and he said that was the best race he's ever had. And because nobody DNF'd, like that's where he was.
Yeah.
Because usually, like, you know, if Williams wants to get some points, they need some people to DNF. Which they almost had that last year during the last year's Austrian Grand Prix, because so unlucky as Williams. There was 9 DNFs in the race, and they still came in 11th.
That's rough. Well, we've cleared half the field, so you're going to basically dead last.
I just can't remember if I have any other points about the. So you got the technically Austria. They're in Austria now at the Red Bull Ring, but technically this is the Styrian Grand Prix.
I had to look at that for a little bit because they announced the next race, and I thought it said Syrian Grand Prix. Like, oh, this is going to be dangerous as shit. Be missiles flying over but it's Styrian. But for a second, I was like, what?
Yeah, I saw some other people like have to take a double take every time they see that. So yeah, it was it's what were the interesting things here? I mean, it was Max Verstappen on pole, so that's probably gonna be good for him. There's actually like this track doesn't have a whole lot of turns to it. It's pretty short, so like I think like during qualifying pace, Max Verstappen did 1 minute and 3 second lap, so that's how pretty quick this course is.
Yeah, that's fast.
But it usually makes for a good race. I'm gonna have 2 here. What was that? Oh yeah. Russell came in 11th. He almost made it to Q3. He was 8 thousandths of a second away from Q3. But he'll start in 11th and he'll get to choose what tire he wants. So that's pretty good. We'll see if anything. But this race seems to, as much as any race can fit Williams, this one seems to be the best, and they'll get 2 races at it. So I don't know if it'll rain, but it might. There's always that chance.
Yeah.
I guess because it's up in the mountains, that that's always a thing that'll happen. Bottas got a 3 grid place penalty for spinning out in the pit lane.
Uh-oh. Is that normal for that? Or is that like maximum penalty?
Well, normally people don't spin out in the pit lane. Well, because he spun out and he kind of like went almost like towards the McLaren garage, and McLaren complained that like, hey, if somebody was coming into the pits at that time, like he would have like hit a bunch of people. So, but apparently like what Bottas was trying to do is like they're trying to find some extra time. And so he dropped the clutch in second gear, and so he got like some extra spin into the tires, and then it spun him around. But they're trying to get off the line quicker.
Yeah, well, yeah, it wasn't something he was doing to be just purposefully aggressive.
Yeah, he wasn't being absent-minded or anything. They were trying something and it didn't work. I guess this is another thing. Like during the French Grand Prix, on the first turn, Max Verstappen goes off, and then Lewis passes him. So Max fucked up that first turn. He was supposed to use the escape road, but didn't. He just kind of went around. But they didn't penalize him because he had lost position. So it's like, well, he didn't go off track and gain position, so we're just going to let that slide. So, so when it came time to pit, Lewis Hamilton pitted after Max Verstappen did, and then Max Verstappen came out ahead of him. They're like, hey, what the fuck happened there? So what the fuck happened there? So there's this thing, there's called an in lap and an out lap. And this all has to deal with when you pit. So an in lap is the last lap you do before you come into the pits. And so basically you're just supposed to just destroy your tires and do the fastest lap you can.
Okay.
And then an out lap is the first lap you do on a new set of tires. And so Max Verstappen put in a fucking hell of an in lap and then did a hell of an out lap, and then he came out ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And Mercedes was caught off guard because they didn't know he could do that. And there's just like all these little things that they're now analyzing with like these in laps and out laps. And some of that is like coming off the line. So like you can't speed in the pit lane, but fuck, if you can accelerate as fast as you can to the speed limit, then that's an extra time. And so that's what Bottas was trying to do, is like they're trying to get that extra time where Red Bull seems to be getting extra time. And they're not used to it because they're used to just like staying out front and winning. So that's what's going on there. So actually Bottas came in second, but because he has that 3 glaze penalty, he's gonna start in 5th place. Bottas won this race last year, so he's pretty good at it. Okay. So we'll see what happens there. Lewis Hamilton, he said he felt good during P3, and then qualifying the car just wasn't there. But like a lot of people, like a lot of veteran drivers had trouble on the. They said like the car felt good the day before, and then like when qualifying it just wasn't there. So like Daniel Ricciardo had trouble. Esteban Ocon had trouble. He's like, at one point, I think during P2, he was like, he had the second best time, and then he qualified in 17th. So I'm not sure if that's like a weather change or something. Sometimes what Mercedes can have trouble at this track is like when it gets really hot because they're not great in hot weather.
Right.
Especially if they have to race behind other cars. But I don't think it's that hot this weekend. But I think these are all the factors that affect an F1 car. But yeah, should be an interesting race tomorrow.
All right. Look forward to it. To the not Syrian Grand Prix. Add a T. Because it's cool. Let's see. America lost a hero this week.
Is he American? I didn't even know.
British American.
Okay.
He was born in England. But I think he was an American. Yes, he had dual nationality, but for all intents and purposes, for tax purposes, if you have dual nationality and one of those is an American, you're an American. And that comes into the John McAfee story. He was a guy, I don't know if our younger listener knows that he started writing commercial broad spectrum antiviral software in the late 80s. And that's because I think it's still around. Is McAfee antivirus still around? Okay.
Yep.
He's not a part of it. He hasn't been a part of it since the mid 90s. But
yeah, you still got Norton and McAfee are still around. And
yeah.
Kaspersky, the Russian one.
Yeah.
That's the one you can trust because the Russians are the ones that are going to infiltrate your shit. So.
Yeah, you might as well just let them in so you don't fight it. So. Yeah, but he was in all kinds of trouble. Well, I don't know. There's a whole huge story with John McAfee's a character, and he was a candidate for president under the Libertarian brand for the last couple elections. I don't know how many votes he got, but he's one of these guys that thinks that taxes should be purely optional at certain levels. It's once you make enough money, you shouldn't have to pay taxes anymore. And but he was an early guy who was one of the first guys who said, "Oh yeah, all these smartphones, they're just spying on you." He said that like 10 years ago, and everyone's like, "Oh, John's a little nuts." And it turns out, oh, he's absolutely right. And what was the other thing? He believed in a lot of very weird stuff. A lot of weird anti-tax stuff. That's why he lived in weird places like Belize and I forget. There was all kinds of places, but he was essentially running from the U.S. government to not pay taxes, and then saying how he didn't get formally charged until till 2020. But he's always had a problem that about taxes, and but then he became like a yoga guy. And lived in a $25 million mansion and this was in like the early 2000s out in LA, and essentially it was a cult, and everyone said it was, and he got bored with that.
There's a lot of guys like that.
Oh yeah, it's a
thing. Have you ever heard of Notch?
No.
Notch is the guy who created Minecraft.
Okay.
And then he sold Minecraft to Microsoft for like $6 billion. And then said, fuck it, I'm out. And bought like Mariah Carey's mansion in LA and just became this like libertarian asshole. Yeah.
Well, between 2005 and 2010, his personal fortune hovered somewhere around $200 million. And by the time he left America, he was down to about $4 million. So there's a lot of money went somewhere.
It can't all go in your nose.
Yeah. And then he went to Belize, which is an infamous tax haven. It's also an infamously lawless country. And then he decided he wanted to make natural antibiotics, and which is basically manufacturing drugs. The U.S. State Department tried to have him arrested. the police authorities wouldn't work with the U.S. So then he, I don't know. He did a lot of weird stuff down there. And then 2012, his neighbor, who was also an American, was found shot in the head, and he fled the country. He fled Belize because he said the police were going to kill him if they questioned him about it. And it's like, oh, okay, that's weird. So then he ran to Guatemala, had 2 heart attacks, and then he was thrown back to the United States. And when he landed in America, he met his current wife, a prostitute, who he ended up marrying. Someone says he has like close to 50 children. I don't know if that's true or not. But he is a very strange man who said a lot of very weird things. But apparently he committed suicide in Spain, because he was about to be extradited to the United States for tax evasion. And supposedly had no money left either. So it's when you come back to America with no money and you're charged with tax evasion, it's prison. So I of course, there's all kinds of conspiracies, because he was someone who posted QAnon stuff, believed in almost every conspiracy theory you can think of, including making up some of his own. I don't know how pro-Trump he was or anything, but he definitely, his Twitter account was magical for a while. It was like everything you could imagine.
It's like that fake Michael Jordan account, but real.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, so he's just one of those guys. He was forget how old he was. I think he was 75 years old.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he'd had a full life of.
Yeah.
I mean, he had $250 million worth of drugs and sex and weirdness. It's like, that's amazing life. I mean, if that's what you want. But yeah, there's
Okay.
there's
When
a
I,
lot of,
when I read those stories, his like kind of like mysteriously dying in prison, I was imagining him being much younger. But if he committed suicide in prison at 70, it's like, that's hey,
75.
that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's, he's one of those guys like, who are those? It's like a lot of those people that are just prime big targets of the American government, and they want to make instead of trying to like settle with the House, because it's not like the American government's evil. It's like, you can come home, let's work out a deal, get your lawyers. We do have a functioning legal system here still, and you're rich. We can figure something out. But now he wants to be like, who's like that Assange guy or some of those other guys. I know these are slightly different reasons, but they just want to snipe at the government and then be horrified when they come after them. It's like, well, yeah, they're going to do that. Unless you settle, once you settle your legal problems with them, you can say whatever you want. But if they got something legal on you and you're taking shots at like the current president or people running for president, it's like, yeah, they're going to come after you, dude. You're going to move to the top of the list.
Hey, who's this guy? Let's look into him just a little bit.
Yeah, and but there's people like Edward Snowden and those people, like, they'll never settle with the government unless they just show up with a blindfold on and just tie themselves to a pole to be shot. There's not, they want those guys, and they're going to kill Julian Assange. I'm convinced of that. I mean, they're not going to sentence him to death, but he's going to die in prison because he pissed a lot of people off who like work for the 3-letter agencies in America, and it's like, yeah. And Snowden, I think Putin's going to suicide him because he says shit about he is living in Russia, and he snipes at the Russian government in their press about, Putin's an oppressive dictator. It's like, dude. Dude.
Have you seen the news? They're not even good at killing people anymore.
Yeah. They will put some shit in your drink that will probably as advertised, could kill 20 people, but it'll just fuck up your nervous system for the rest of your life. Or then that one Russian dissident, another guy, what's that stuff called? Novichok. But he lived, and now he's in prison again. And guess what? He's dying in prison. It's like, yeah, no shit. Why'd you go back to Russia? Think that Putin was going to just, come on back.
So I like the way you could take this. Like, either this is like a genius oppression. It's like, you let everybody know, like, if you get out of line, this is going to happen to you. But it's also probably just them fucking up. It's like, we want you to do this quietly. It's like, now everybody knows. What are you doing? It's like, oh, that still works.
Well, that's like some of the fun of the buffoonery of the FSB and stuff is like they're sinister but stupid at the same time. It's like they have the deadly chemicals, but it's just like when they killed that guy with polonium. Okay, I mean, and they're doing this to send a message because there's only like 2 countries in the world that make polonium. It's like us and Russia. Like, that's it. Only countries with massive nuclear programs. And it's not cheap. It's thousands of dollars an ounce to make this shit. We use it in fire detection equipment. And the Russians use it for that too, and apparently to kill people they don't like. But there's only 2 places in the world that make this. And you kill a journalist who's writing things about the Russian government with polonium, but you do it in such a danger. You spread this shit around like you're just like firing, like you're just taking flour and throwing it up in the air. That hotel where they poisoned this guy was so red with this stuff, they thought they were gonna have to burn the hotel down. It was in London, and it was like, oh my god, did these people just throw this around like fairy dust? I mean, you'd think it's like they waited for him to turn his back and they lifted a vial and just poured. No, they had this shit. It was all over their clothes, all over their luggage.
Yeah,
all over their
I'm just imagining like this just thick-headed Russian with like 2 like chalkboard erasers.
Yeah, just look, you fucking dad. So are we, and all the people that work at the hotel. I mean, because no one knows the guys that poisoned him. They know exactly who they are, because when you check in, you gotta present your passport and stuff at the hotel because you don't have a valid ID. So that's your ID. So if you tear up the hotel room or contaminate it with polonium, they're gonna know who you are. No one knows if those guys are even alive. But it's just like this Novichok stuff, like when they tried to kill the guy and his daughter at the park in London. Oh, you'd think like, oh, it's a nerve agent worse than VX, supposedly. I mean, this is again, the Russian government makes these claims like we have VX2, and it's like, oh, it's fucking toothpaste that might kill you. They're just, the level of the ideas are great, but the competency and the follow through and delivery are always terrible. So it's like, yeah, we're gonna poison this guy and his daughter with polonium because they're saying stuff about their Russian expats are saying stuff about the government. And how are we gonna do that? We're gonna put a little drop on their skin or poke them with an umbrella like they did in the 60s when they killed that one guy. No, we're just gonna spray it all over this bench so that those 2 get sick, and some of the London police that responded to, and these people are. This deadly nerve agent, they thought they were drunk at first when they found him. It's like, what are you people doing here? And then they realized, oh, they're frothing at the mouth. Something isn't right. Both of them are still alive, though. So it's like, oh, and then they tried to kill this latest guy with this polonium or whatever. It's like, man, you guys need to switch back to curare or something. At least you were actually killing people then. But see, they were trying to do that clandestinely. Like when they did the thing where they poked the guy with the umbrella with the syringe in it that had the ball of curare. They didn't want to be caught. They just wanted that guy dead.
Yeah.
This buffoon stuff they do now is like, oh, we want people to know and be afraid. Well, all you're doing is pissing off the British and just horrifying the rest of the world. It's like, this is like something out of North Korea. It's so obvious. Well, I had North Korea. I remember they used VX supposedly to kill his brother. It's like, well, I thought this stuff would kill everyone in the room. It's like it was in a whole. They just gave it to some girls in their hands and they slapped it on his face. And it's like, I thought this stuff was like lethal. And maybe it is. It's just they're using a bad formulation of it. I don't know. Because we know like quality is truly the first priority in Russia. But yeah, I love all the Russian. And these are the things you hear about. The other stuff I've read about is like the journalists, the famous shotgun suicide. The lady killed herself with a Remington pump action shotgun, which is an American gun not widely available in Russia. And she cycled and shot the shotgun, killed herself like 4 times, once in the back with it. It's like, oh, terrible suicide. So such a loss. It's like, yeah, they're doing this shit on purpose. Because you can't just go into a store in Russia and buy an American shotgun. They don't. You can own guns there, but it's very uncommon for a reporter in Moscow to have a sawn-off 12-gauge shotgun in her apartment. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't think that's normal there. I don't even think our journalists have sawn-off shotguns at home. Some of them do. I'm sure the Fox News people do.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, you can register for a short barrel shotgun now, so.
Oh, good. Well, life is good.
It might take forever to get approved, but yeah, you can do it. Oh, in certain states.
Yeah. I don't know. Sounds fun. I'd love to have all that stuff I see on those gun channels, but then you look into what the tax stamps cost, and so I was like, oh my God, no, I'll never have that. Like silencers and stuff. It's like, it's so expensive. Just the stamp is expensive, and then you
Yeah, it's like it's
the
$1,000 silencer and $1,000 tax stamp.
I'm not doing that.
And then it takes like 6 months for them to actually like complete the paperwork.
Yeah, and you got to do all this paperwork.
Yeah. Yeah, I still haven't completed the
Don't say it.
okay. Well, it's not together. Like,
Okay.
it's not as long as it's not together, I'm fine. Like I can own it.
And it's not together.
No, it's not together.
Okay.
See, I have it. If everything goes to hell, then it doesn't matter. Then I can put it together.
Well, I assume if everything goes to hell, I don't know. I was talking to Mom the other day, and I was really reflecting. I was like, I'm really kind of too fat for the purge at this point. Unless it's like something I could be like the guy in the semi truck. He didn't seem to move around a lot, but yeah, I assume if it all goes to hell, I'm gonna have all this stuff. If I live long enough, I'm gonna have all this stuff anyway. It's like it's everywhere. So, except for like full auto stuff, I know one guy that has something like that, and it is such a tremendous investment in time and security to own something like that. Even he's looking to get out. He's like, man, I really wanted this. No, I don't. He's like having to rent out like vault space somewhere and all this, and it's like, oh man, you can't leave that shit unattended.
Yeah.
It's either got to be strapped to your body or in a huge safe, and they will come and verify that it's in that safe. They don't need a search warrant. Just come right in. It's like,
yeah, the Demolition Ranch guy, he has a full auto Mac 10, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it costs him $15,000. Mac 10's worth like $500, but
it's cheap.
Full auto pre 78 or whatever the time is, and it's like it's a allowable.
Speaking of which, Ian was as happy as I've ever seen him. The other day, he got to fire a full auto FAMAS.
Yeah.
And he was wearing like a French soldier's hat. And
yeah.
Was so happy. He's like, look, you go from 3 to full on the back. That's a great idea. I love this thing.
Oops, I fucked up.
Yeah, he was on full auto. He didn't realize it. He was just doing it he thought it was 3-round burst.
Well, I guess vaguely related to that, I got another one of Headstamp Publishing's books.
Oh, which one's this about?
Thornycroft to SA80. This one's about the British bullpups.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a gun with an interesting fraught history.
So it's
that looks like a nice book too.
Yeah, it's got all the quality of the Ian's one, and it's probably thicker too. But
yeah.
It's
now, can you even own one of those as semi-automatic in the U.S. or are they
probably?
Strictly, I don't know if they have an export for that.
Which one, the SA80 or the FAMAS?
The SA80.
Yeah, I think so.
Looked cool, but I don't know if you could buy like a semi-automatic version.
Yeah, probably. I don't know why you wanted one, but
yeah, it's just
the FAMAS the FAMAS is much cooler.
Very hard to get.
Yeah,
legal semi.
Yeah. You can't sell them directly, but you can get parts kits. Which, do you know about the parts kit scene? Do you know what that actually is?
No.
Okay, so I'm probably getting some of this wrong, but essentially like when they call it part. So any of like authentic Russian AK, if someone didn't bring it back from a war, if it's an authentic AK in America, the only way you can do it is like the barrel has to be like cut and destroyed and sent over here in a parts kit.
Okay.
And then you reassemble it as an AK-47.
Yeah, I know there's weird laws, but I don't know much about them.
So I believe that's how Ian has his FAMAS, is it was sent over as a parts kit, and then he paid to have it rebuilt as a FAMAS, and it's an authentic FAMAS.
Okay.
And then the one he was shooting in that video was some special outfit made that. So
Yeah.
There's weird rules like so if you manufacture weapons, you can make full auto weapons for demonstration purposes.
You know that.
It's like, so as long as it doesn't leave your possession, you can make them.
I knew guys that rented them out to movies. That was their
Yeah.
job.
Mhm.
Like they just had a vault full, but they were all military weapons, and I don't think they had anything newer than World War II. But that's what they specialized in. They were in Indiana. I think they still are brothers. Like, hey, you want to fire a Maxim, like the machine gun from World War II? Yeah. Like a real one? Yeah. Okay. Showed up at the gun range. It's like here, they had a bucket of water with a hose. Here you go. Tuck, 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 tuck. It's a weird caliber too. I forget what the caliber was, but yeah, that's one of my few experiences with automatic weapons, and that thing weighed like 300 pounds altogether. It had like brass stanchions, and it had like big, like brass turning wheels on
Yeah.
all, and that's how you aimed it. You just put it down. It's like these guys must have had a lot of time. But I think those were all like trench fighting, like fixed fortification type guns. So, it's a terrifying gun. You wouldn't want to be on the other end of it. Even the old World War I tech, it's still like that's a lot. That's a big volume of fire downfield. How do you stop guys that are doing that? Well, you don't. Those guns are long and they have range too. They're not just they're also fully automatic, but they can pretty much shoot anything they can see.
I mean, you defeat them with mobility, but in that time, in the tactics is like, well, how many guys should we send directly into the machine gun nest?
Yes. How mobile are our guys with 6.5 foot long rifles in wool uniforms that are saturated? How mobile can they be?
How fast can they run through mud
Yeah.
with shoes that were made yesterday?
Yeah. That they made themselves half the time. Where's the latrine? It's like, oh, that's the trench too. It's dual purpose.
You're standing in it.
Yeah. Don't cut your finger. We'll be chopping that shit off. But yeah, I was happy to see Ian so happy.
Yeah.
He literally like vibrating, like, oh, this is the ultimate thing for him.
You know, Ian McCullen from Forgotten Weapons, he is he wrote an entire book about French rifles, and he loves French weaponry. I believe he owns a machine gun, but it's like one of the World War One machine guns. I can't remember what it's called, like a LeBlue or something like that, or whatever.
Yeah, is that the one with the rotary drum that sits on the top?
No, it's got that half moon one that goes like all the way, or it's a half moon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a ridiculous AK-47 clip that's like it was half a circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun to load too. I remember that video. Just trying to muscle that into position.
Yeah.
That's a good design.
Well, I think because I believe they used it. So they did that one. Oh, what did they call it? It was a special video that was CN Arsenal, where they were testing out all the machine guns of World War One to see which one was the best, and he brought his for that, and then everyone else brought a different machine gun. But yeah, that's one of Ian's machine guns, and the Demo Ranch guy, his Mac 10. Like there's weird things. There's a lot of like automatic Mac 10s out there, and one thing that people do is that they turn the Mac 10 into a lure for an AR-15 so that they can have an automatic AR-15 because it's technically still a Mac 10, and they're very fucking weird, but they work.
Yeah. See, these are games I would never play even if I had the money. It's just like the only automatic gun I'm interested in is full auto gun that I would have if I could would be an original Uzi. And I mean the big ones, not the little ones. The big ones. The open breech 9mm Uzi, because I mean I've heard they're not like the best guns, but they just like, oh, that's like some real throwback shit to like my favorite era of weapons is the 80s, because it was kind of experimental, like when the guys were making like the what were the one like The guys who made like the Wildy Magnums and stuff like that, like those are horrible to shoot, really abusive on your hands, but they're cool. I mean, that was such a vibrant era of like, what's gonna work, you know? And like the Uzi was the reason they made that is they could stamp most of it.
Yeah.
They knew the 9mm was like it's not the biggest stopping power gun, but when you're throwing 30 of them at a guy, it's gonna stop him.
And it's the in between the era of like high tech polymer stuff and like they're starting to do that, and then like a full metal 9mm, the Wonder Nines as they call them.
Yeah. Well, and I just like the Uzi because any of those guns, any gun made after the 60s that still fires from the open breech, it's like, oh wow, okay, you're solving a lot of problems. I understand why that's open breech, but god damn, is that like old school? And it just slam, boom, boom, boom. You know, it's so mechanical. If you see an Uzi fired in slow motion, it's just cool as shit. It looks like an industrial machine. And it was something kind of built out of desperation and ingenuity by the Israelis because there was this, you know, they couldn't import weapons there, and they had to kind of make their own stuff. And it's like, this is our solution. This weird, basically tube with a handle off the bottom of it. It doesn't look like any other gun, like because everything's straight. There's no curve. There's nothing like that. I mean, I don't think they use them anymore, but it's that's one I'd have, and just because it has an exceptional rate of fire for something, even the full size ones with the long barrels, it's a pretty good rate of fire for what it is.
Yeah, well, I was hearing the other day like the like smaller pistol stuff, because I guess the weight of the bolt is so small that they actually like things with lighter bolts have faster fire rates.
Yeah.
No,
Just
you can't put like
Yeah.
but you can't put like a 100-round clip on there because you're going to destroy the gun.
Yeah.
But it's normal clip. It'll fire through that really quick. Because I like those automatic Beretta 9mm.
Yeah.
Like those things have like crazy fire rates.
Yeah.
If you let them be full, I think they're like actually 3-round burst. But if you have them be full auto, like those things have like 2,000 round fire rates or something like that.
Remember when who was it? Who changed the game with that? Oh, Glock.
Oh yeah.
Glock has that fully automatic C19 or whatever, and but it seems like 50,000 people have those. It's like every other gun channel, like, hey, we got a Glock C19 here, and we're gonna put like a magazine this long on it, and it's not gonna fuck it up. Which is, and I've seen guys try to melt them down, and they will eventually. Anything like that will fail. But it's like for something that small, this is much plastic on it, and it's 80s technology. You never forget, Glock is 80s tech too. I don't like that seems uncontrollable to me. I know for me me personally shooting a gun, if someone handed me one of those, I'd just hand it back like, nope. I'm gonna be shooting at the sky with that damn thing.
Well, I don't know. That's like the weird thing about automatic fire. Like even though like you talk about gun control, like I don't think people should have automatic weapons. Even though I know semi-automatic fire is more deadly, I still don't think people should have automatic weapons.
Yeah, I mean, there's only a few I would want, and only if I had the money and a place to live where it was safe.
So I'll never have it.
I would like I'm never going to have anything like that. I would like to fire one. If someone said you can go to like this place in Vegas and fire all these automatic guns, it's like, it's $1,000, but you can shoot every gun from World War II. Okay, give me one of those German helmets and set me up in front of one of those machine guns. And, I do that. I don't want this shit around the house though. I want to have to secure that crap.
I think the only one I'd want, and like I only know this theoretically, but like that was it called the USA 10 shotgun?
Oh, the Ursa, or was it? Yeah, what's that one called?
I mean, it basically looks like an M16 with a shotgun mag on it, but like it has that continuous. What was it? It's like continuous recoil system. So basically, like the recoil is like continuous, so you're never like actually getting the full recoil from one thing, and it's actually better to fire in automatic than it is in semi for some reason. For like how it's designed, it's weirdly like less impactful to just like fire a full clip than it is to just fire one round.
Is that the AA-10 that either has the round magazine or the straight magazine? And the Army was playing around with it for a while, but then they decided it's just expensive. Yeah, the AA-10. Yeah. They had one of those. Do you know that one of the guys in Breaking Bad in the famous shootout scene had one of those?
No, no.
Yeah, there's a story behind that because I mean, the guy was just holding it like it was, because these are just prop guys that were getting these. Well, for that shootout scene, they had to like procure the meanest looking weapons you can. Okay, and so the armorers went and did it, and it's like anyone who watches that show is like, oh, that guy would kill Hank. He would just sit by his car. He'd have 30 shotgun rounds. He would literally like that Charger or whatever with the roof pillars would be blown off. But he was just like shooting it like a shotgun in the background. I think it was even special effects. But a lot of people watch that scene. It's like, where did that guy get a prototype, like, U.S. Army? I mean, they're biker meth people, so maybe they should get them. Maybe they should get them. Maybe they could get them. But it's still like, when you watch that scene, it kind of takes you out of it. It's like, oh, that guy'd be the king of that battlefield. Someone shooting like a 9mm at him, and he's just like, boom, 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 boom. Because that thing can fire slugs, buckshot, anything. And they're fully automatic shotgun, which is a crazy idea. I mean, I even think, like, the one thing I've been circling around if they ever come back is I would like to get one of those Tavors with the twist magazine, but I want to shoot one first. I want to see what that's going to be like to reload and use, because sometimes those look cool in the gun video guys, because those guys are handling guns constantly.
Or they have the guy who like works for the team and he just did nothing but that's all I do all day. Like, doesn't this look cool? But what if you fumble with it and you're just like, you're not using it every day?
That's what I want to know, because the reason I don't have a Benelli is because I tried one out and I absolutely fucking hated it. It's those semi-automatic ones. Yeah. They're a bitch to load. It's like, it can hold this many shots, but if you put that many in, it'll jam sometimes. It's like, so what? I'm down to my Remington 870 number of shots, and all I got to do is pump. And it was $1,000, and I walked away from it. I was like, I don't like this Benelli. I'm sorry. I just don't. Because you had to literally flip it up, load it like that. And this is just me. For everyone else, I'm sure it's wonderful. I don't want to be attacked for it, but I'm going to try a gun, unless it's like those big, heavy, stupid revolvers I like, which is like, well, I know how those work. But yeah, I'm not going to. Same thing with like AK. The reason I don't have an AK-47, I don't like how they work. The AR-15, I love how it's so simple. It's stupid. It's like an idiot. Well, there we go. And it did jam a lot initially, and then I just made some adjustments a guy told me about, and then it never jammed again. And I fired like 5,000 rounds through it, and I haven't fired my AR-15 in 7 years. So that was money well spent. But it does have a, what is mine like? It's the perfect gun from it's the baddest AR-15 you could have in 2006, because it's got the old EOTech, the big EOTech on it. It doesn't have any of the, the crinkly, what do you call that? Like the rails and stuff. Like this came before the rails, so it has some rails built into it. Yeah, but it doesn't have the extra ones on the front. It doesn't have a handle.
I got the 4-way Picatinny rail on the front.
This was kind of before that. I could buy one aftermarket, but it's really expensive. Like, I don't shoot this thing enough. So yeah, it's like the most badass AR-15 you can buy from 2006, and that's where I stopped. I think that was the last gun I bought, actually. I don't think I've bought a gun since like 2005, 2006. But I have so many. I've tried to sell some. It's like, hey,
if you were using them more, you'd have a reason to buy them, but you're not. So
I'm not. Well, I can't find bullets. It's expensive to shoot. I shoot my 40. I do shoot my Kimber a lot. I'd say that's the gun. That and my 44 Magnum, I've probably put the most rounds through those. But that 44 Magnum's just ridiculous. It's so fun. You pull that out, and everyone on the range is like, "Oh, it's one of these guys." Boom. And I looked at a 500 Smith, but then you look at the price of bullets, like, no, not worth it. Oh. But yeah, fantasy guns, like definitely a fully automatic, full-size Uzi. I think they call those the Golly version, the big, even with the long barrel, because you got to have some control over where it's going. It's just spraying the shit out. But yeah, I'll never do that. and hopefully I won't need to do that. I'm too fat for the purge. Remember, it's like, you like John Wick? It's like, it's more like John Thick. Like, I could do all that stuff, but when it came time to run, I'd be like, okay, hold on, guys. Yeah, we can do all this. I can shoot the gun upside down into your throat and stuff. Yeah, we can do that, but you want me to run now? Fuck that.
You can do it from a scooter.
Yeah. Boom, boom, and shoot it upside down. Throw it up in the air and reload it. I can do all that, but if I got to run 10 feet, well, that fucking game over. And if I got to jump on a horse, that horse is going to take one look at me and jump out of my way when I try to get on it. It's going to do that horse sidestep thing.
And then just kick you in the face.
Yeah, just kick me. They should have like a fat assassin movie where the guy's like, part of his strategy is that he can't really run, so he has to assassinate and then work his escape around like elevators and just moving slowly.
I think one of the gangrene skits I came up with is, and it's partially just of my own like fears, is just like 5-second action movies where the guy's too fat to do a thing and just dies. Like, he can't do it. He can't pull himself up to get on the to pull himself into a helicopter and just falls to his death.
Or yeah, like I'm on the ledge and the guy's like, give me your hand, and then he looks at me. He's like, whoa! On the helicopter just to fly away, because if I take his hand, it's gonna come. His arm's gonna come off at the shoulder. But if you like jump on a car from even like 8 feet, just all the windows explode out. And walk away, like the roof's like, looks like an elephant was dropped on the car. It's like, that's how you could stop a car. Someone's trying to hit you with a car, just jump up in the air, roll across the hood, and all your mass, you just smash through the windshield and decapitate the two guys in the front. And you get out. It's like, yeah, 500 pounds, baby. You could invent like a kind of kung fu that like involves swinging your gut around, which doesn't really hurt people but horrifies them. Full motion, sweaty gut flying through the air.
It's like a flamethrower. It's more psychological than actually effective.
Yeah. Yeah, flamethrowers are terrifying, but for 5 seconds and then you're out of fuel. Speaking of flamethrowers, there's a new Aliens game coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Called Elite Force or Elite something?
Elite something Hunter. It's like they added a bunch of verbs on the end of something, probably for rights reasons. Like, well, we need to trademark this, so throw some adjectives and verbs on the end of it.
Yeah, quick.
Like that's why things get weirdly named like that. It's like, well, we need to trademark this, or whatever you call it, copyright it, yeah. And because everything's copyrighted, you gotta come up with strange shit. Yeah, I heard that was in development. So hopefully it's good, because the last bunch of Aliens and Predators stuff has not been very good.
Yeah, I just said it was coming out. It's probably gonna suck, but it's like, yeah.
Well, I mean, Alien Isolation was good, but that was like a
totally different thing.
Yeah, it was a masterpiece unto itself that will never be made again because it didn't make money.
Thing about Alien, I actually played that one. I played that through, and I put headphones on, even though they said don't. I didn't scream out or anything, but the music cues were pretty. To me, the music cues indicate it's like, oh, music stops. Time for something to drop from the ceiling and have that, that violin scratch. It's like, okay, I know what they're doing. Well, see, the thing about Alien Isolation that was good was it was a throwback to Alien.
Yeah,
it's not tactical space forces. It's some lady that knows how to work on a ship, and being attacked by something that will just fucking kill you if it sees you. You don't have weapons. I mean, you did have weapons in that, but they were like not.
You couldn't fight the alien. You could fight the robot things or whatever.
Yeah, you kill robots and you could do things like that, but they didn't. Those robots in that game were especially creepy because they were like the cheap version. They were like the knockoff company.
Yeah.
Of the robots, like the Bishop robots and the Ash robots, so they looked like rubbery and mechanical, and they talked in weird, like normal voices, but we're talking about like we're going to kill you now, just weird shit like that. Yeah, that was a great game. They'll never be made again because it's like the original Aliens. And then when you played the expansion pack, Crew Expendable, you could actually play the characters from Aliens, and the gameplay was identical. So it's like, okay, that was good.
Yeah, and they had a scale model of the Nostromo, right? And you could walk around in there.
Yeah, they had a 3D model of it.
Because you don't go. Do you go in the Nostromo in the regular game, or is it just that expansion?
No, it's just that expansion.
Okay.
It's called the Crew Expendable expansion or whatever,
Yeah.
which I earned by playing the game a lot. I didn't have to buy it because I played it a lot. That's when I had my TV in here in the old Xbox.
Yeah, I remember I remember like one of the downsides of that game. It had one of the weirdest, fucked up save systems.
Yeah, it didn't have one. It's like if you died, well, you might have saved it at that point, but it's not going to start you at that
You
point.
had to like go to the station to save, but then
Yeah.
there was shit where like, oh, you can save with no health and an enemy around you. It's like that's not a good idea.
Or sometimes you'd save even at the right point, and it would start you off somewhere different. Like, what the fuck is this? But it would start you off with like all your gear back, and it's like, well, I used that to get into here, but now I'm here. Okay, great. Here we go.
I remember one time I had a really fucked up save system. It was when BioShock Infinite came out, and like I was like, why do I have to play the same like section over and over again? Like, why isn't it saving? And it was this when I was at the schoolhouse. So like every time, every day, if I played my 360, I'd have to like put it away and unplug it. And because the system clock, because I was never like resetting the system clock, the saves were just like all over the place, and it was never selecting the right one because it was just selecting whatever the recent one was. It's like, oh, that's why I can't progress in this game.
Yeah. Because the internal battery's bad. Let's see. Want to talk about the movie now?
Yeah.
We watched a very sexy movie from 1967's Bonnie and Clyde, starring Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway, with Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
It was nice to see Gene Hackman because he hasn't acted in years.
And what, Gene Wilder's in there somewhere?
Yeah, Gene Wilder plays a kind of a straight character, but a weird one. This was a cool movie. It reminds me very much of movies of that era, because I was thinking there's a lot of Easy Rider overtones to this, even though Easy Rider I think came later.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking oh, I bet this is like a movie about Bonnie and Clyde where it's like strong performances, and the whole thing about the movie is like you end up liking them, and then when they're violently killed at the end, you're left with like, oh right, they are bad people and they're supposed to die. So you're supposed to feel conflicted. I was not prepared for how fucking weird this movie is.
Yeah, this movie was. I did some research on this, and I read a book about Bonnie and Clyde about 6 months ago too, like the real story of Bonnie. Remember that movie Highwaymen with Kevin Costner and what's the other guy's name? The guy from Texas. He's in a lot of good stuff. Why am I drawing a blank on him? He was in the first season of True Detective and a bunch of Woody Harrelson. It's on Netflix. It was a Netflix like.
Oh yeah, we watched it. Yeah.
That was actually more in line with the reality of Bonnie and Clyde, even though it was mainly those two characters.
Yeah.
But how they set them up at the end and stuff, that was actually more realistic than this movie skipped around a lot. There's elements of the history of Bonnie.
Bushes killed them.
Yeah. They did shoot him to pieces, though. Oh boy,
yeah.
They really did. But there's a reason why. But anyway, we'll talk about the movie first. This movie was a product of the '60s.
Yeah.
It was about the '60s. It was about sticking it to the man, which in this case, this happened during the Depression. So they had that famous scene where the Bonnie and Clyde were shooting bottles behind this house that had a big sign on it that says it was foreclosed by this bank. this should sound familiar to anyone who's alive now. And so then the guy and his family come up like, hey, what are you doing? And then they are like, oh, okay, go ahead, because the guy was wondering what these people were doing, shooting guns behind his foreclosed house, and him and his family were leaving like in the old Grapes of Wrath truck car that had all their furniture on it. And he's like, no, come back here. Clyde's like, shoot up the sign and shoot up the house. And then the black guy who was also a sharecropper, he was shooting at the house too, and they were laughing. And that was like the fuck the man part of this movie, where it's like we're like,
Well, this is like where it's genius, where it kind of sets them off as like good people. And it's like, see, the bank's the real problem, because then they go and try and rob the bank, and that's funny.
Yeah,
it's like, well, we failed 3 weeks ago. We're not a bank anymore.
Yeah,
and then grabs the guy's like, tell her what you told me. It's hilarious.
Yeah, Warren Beatty does everyone does a great job in this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, especially Faye Dunaway starts the movie with her like, what's going on, and she's just strategically naked. While like Clyde's like trying to steal her mom's car.
And she knows it.
Yeah.
He's interested in this guy.
Also
window naked, like, what are you doing?
Also, like, what I think is weird, it's like they hint that like in the movie he's like, yeah, I'm not a lovey-dovey guy or whatever, something like that. So I'm not gay or anything, which I think, like, how am I supposed to, if I'm from the 60s, how am I supposed to interpret it? Is I supposed to think he's gay because the thing they deny is the thing they are? But like looking at their modern eyes, is like, is he asexual? Where like he wants companionship, but he's not at all interested in physical intimacy.
Well, there's I don't know what the movie director and the script was going for, but that was kind of actually a known thing about him, because he went to prison. There was an interstitial period in their real life, in the real story of Bonnie and Clyde, where he went to prison for a while, and he was violently raped. And as a very young man, like 18, 19 years old, and that made he had a very ambivalent attitude towards sex after that. And it's also what made him crazy. A lot of people say that, like, oh, he was like a petty criminal, and then he went to prison, and he came out like, oh, I'll talk to you and be friendly, but if you're a danger to me, I'll shoot you in the face. Like, he totally changed. And I don't know if they knew that about him back then, or they were trying to write a unique character. Yeah. But in the history of like Bonnie and Clyde, it was known to be almost a sexless relationship, because like Natural Born Killers draws a lot off of this.
Yeah.
Mickey and Mallory Knox, but they were like pure sex and madness, but it was also madness sex. It wasn't like healthy sex. It was like, my dad raped me and this is how I show love, and I'm going to shoot someone and then screw my boyfriend. And this was a milder version of that. But yeah, their real excitement was danger and adventure. Yeah. Sex was kind of Clyde had negative early experiences with sex, mainly violent prison sex. So it colored his personality, I think. That's what I got out of it. But I've also read about this, so I was kind of like, oh, they are including this, or they're doing something, because this movie was very risky at the time it came out.
Well, I mean, it's the 60s, so like I think like the overall like culture, it would probably be okay, but like for movies it was risky.
Well, see, this was the time in Hollywood where they didn't have the old system that like the Catholic Church dictated.
Yeah.
It was called the Haynes system or something. They got rid of that, but they didn't have RPG, PG-13 or any of that yet. That was coming along. So this was kind of like one of those interstitial movies where there's like, well, we don't really have any rules, so we're not going to do like full frontal nudity and gratuitous stuff like that, but we're going to play around with ideas and suggest things about characters, and we're also going to be really, really violent, like, very in your face Sam Peckinpah type violence, which is actually before the Wild Bunch.
Oh, did? Okay, yeah, because I was always because because I remember like this is always like the violence at the end is always like what this movie gets pegged for, is like, oh, this brought ultra violence to the American culture, but then also like the Peckinpah stuff is what gets cited as like, bringing ultra violence.
Wild Bunch came in 1969.
Okay.
Now, one thing about the violence and some of the stuff in this movie was the first movie where they could have remote control blood explosion things. the squibs they called them. This
Yeah.
was the first movie to use that technology
Huh.
widely. And back then you had to pad people because they were like you had to build up stuff under them.
Yeah.
They were because those squibs were pretty nasty, and they also had wires running to them, which is nowadays they're just like remote, like Bluetooth. But back then, so that was like a feature of this movie that like, oh yeah, this seems gratuitously violent. It's like, yeah, because you're not shooting someone and then cutting frame and then coming back and there's blood pouring out of them. No, you're seeing their skin burst or simulation of it. And like, that was shocking to audiences.
Yeah.
I mean, he shot a guy in the face, like right on camera, and they showed it. They didn't show his head exploding or anything, but they, the guy jumped on the car and he just stuck the gun out and shot through the windshield. But all this movie is like, there's a lot of 60s stuff in it. I see, because this is at the end of the 60s. It's 67, so it probably came out in like, probably made in the mid, it's like 66 or something.
Yeah.
It made $70 million in 60s bucks on a $2.5 million budget, if you can believe that. So it was a very successful movie.
Yeah.
Very popular mainstream actors in it too. Looked good. I mean, it looks like if you watch this and you watch like The Wild Bunch and you watch what was the other one, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, all these movies kind of have the same genetics to how they look. And the kind of storytelling they do.
Yeah.
Where it's like guys doing exposition, like,
I think like also this movie's not that long, but there's a lot of like empty spaces left for you to contemplate things, which is they don't make movies like that anymore. But yeah.
Well, I mean, Warren Beatty has a lot of scenes where he's just like mad. He's like he's the center of the scene. He's going to explain this for everyone, and then we're going to have a shootout. And he does that really well. And then Faye Dunaway kind of projects like a creepy naivete.
Yeah.
Where it's like she's naive in the fact that she thinks she's like some kind of poet or artist who just wants to rob banks and shoot people. Which Bonnie was.
Now let's do our slam poetry. I think it'll go in the papers.
Yeah. Well, it's, and she was really like that too. So it did, but the Faye Dunaway makes everything in this movie has a creepy sexual subtext with her, with her character in particular, and I think it's cool because that's really like of all the gangsters and shoot 'em ups and stuff that happened in the 30s and all the bank robbers and all the criminals, she was the most famous woman, and she kind of had she was kind of an odd person, in that role. And what's my other favorite scene? Oh, when they go and talk to her mother. Was it her mother or her grandmother? Remember where they have the picnic?
Can't remember.
I think it's her mother. She's yeah. But remember how they go to that surreal, like camera, like everything has this really weird filter on the camera. Everything looks bright. Yeah. And kind of like it's almost like Twilight Zone filming because they're real close on everyone's face. And the mom's, because she just wants to see her, or I'm going to say it's her mother because I can't remember. And then, she wants to see her mother and she wants to connect with her. And her mom's like, "You guys better keep running. You better run, and you better not stop because you're going to get killed." And she's like hoping to make this connection with this woman, but again they're shooting it like they're right in their faces, and she's delivering this dialogue, and it has this surreal lighting and feel to it. Like nothing else in the movie looks like that picnic scene. It's kind of got that golden hue to it. Like, is this a dream? What does this mean? And I don't know why I picked up on that, but I like rewatched that scene. It's like, oh, this looks totally different from the color palette of the rest of the movie. Yeah. Because this is Bonnie trying to connect with her family.
Well, it was like the fucking weird, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be psychologically, but like, what's his name?
Warren Beatty?
No, the other guy. Hoosiers and...
Oh, Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman. When his wife is... it's his brother, right?
Yeah,
Are they brothers? Okay.
It's his older brother.
His wife gets captured or whatever by the police, and she's wrapped in bandages, and they're interrogating her, and she's in a frantic state. It's like, this is fucking weird.
Well, remember when the guy playing what's his name played the Kevin Costner character, but none of that stuff happened. but if, like they said in this movie, but what was his name? Oh, Frank Hamer. Remember when he goes into the room to interrogate Estelle and she's all wrapped up in bandages and she can't see, and he deliberately walks behind her,
Yeah.
his hand on her and stuff, and she's, you know, because this woman's hysterical throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
She's either hysterically happy or she's scared to death because they're in a shootout with the police and she's screaming and running down the street, which anyone would. It's like, oh, this is nuts. But yeah, they had a lot of weird, a lot of scenes like that. That's like, well, that's an artifact from the 60s. Wouldn't do that anymore. Wouldn't play the character that way. Or if you did, you'd have a reason.
Yeah, like all the cops are kind of weird, but like they're not the main characters. They just kind of pop up as like uneasy forces. So, but you're not on their side, even though you should be.
Yeah, the cops are all bad in this, or just kind of generic, like the town guards in a medieval RPG. Like they just show up to be killed, and, or to have insane shootouts, and then oh, they're coming to the county line. We got to turn around. It's like they just killed 5 people. Well, it's jurisdiction. Yeah. I do like the cars and the roads they're on in this. They got that right. Just a bunch of dirt roads and cars that if you got to around 60 miles an hour, you were taking your life into your hands. And then the weird interior car scenes they did where these cars seemed as big as banquet rooms. That's interesting. I know they're trying to tell a story, but it's like, yeah, those cars weren't that big, but it certainly looks cool.
Or if you know what you're doing, you can just like hotwire any car and just take whatever car you want.
You just open the hood, to open the hood, you turn a handle and this thing flips up on the side. Then you go in and do something, and then you go in and start the car, which they probably were actually that easy to steal.
Probably, yeah.
That's not very sophisticated. Because the one guy just blew into a fuel line. It's like the car started right up. That was the C.W. Moss character.
That name sounds familiar. Is he known for other things than this? Or?
Michael Pollard, the actor?
No, like C.W. Moss himself. Like
no, it's just he was an amalgam character in this.
Oh, okay.
He actually represented 2 other people that worked with the Barrow Gang. So he was like one of those characters. It's like, well, we're not going to hire 2 extra actors that are kind of in and out of the real story. So he was an amalgam of 2 different people.
Okay.
But the name does sound like that's a name I've heard.
Well, there's other CW things. Like, I'm just confused.
Yeah. Yeah, but this movie overall was pretty cool. I mean, it reminds me of movies of that era. It's like, yep, it's one of these, but it's well scripted and well acted, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I've always heard good things. It's like one of those top movies of all time, and I've just never watched it. So I took the time. It's like, hey, watch that. I've never seen it.
Yeah,
I've seen because it gets up in like all these like best of clip shows, and you just like you've seen Bonnie and Clyde killed in every one of those clip shows. It's like I know that scene.
Yeah, that's not the most interesting part of their story. Well, yeah, we'll talk about the book I read about Bonnie and Clyde to kind of put some of this story in perspective. And you can tell, they didn't tell certain parts of the story because it would just not have been germane at that time. Number one, the Barrow Gang had wild ass shootouts with police, especially as they got more and more bold, because they raided a National Guard armory. Because you know what Clyde Barrow's favorite gun was, don't you?
What, the Tommy gun?
It was BAR.
Oh, yeah.
They never used Tommy guns. I don't think they had access to them around those.
Well, it was just that photo with him, so maybe that's where they...
Yeah, they might have had one, but his thing was he had a BAR and he cut the buttstock off.
Yeah.
So it's a pistol grip BAR and this big ass fully automatic 30-06. Then he cut the barrel down and the gas tube down, so he could just hold it like this. They said he was an incredibly physically strong man. The real guy was like, because he worked in like oil fields. And let's talk about where they came from first. because they came from a place called West Dallas, and well, he did, and she came from a place called Cement City, Texas. Those were literally like the worst places in America to live at that time.
Huh.
It was not; those people were poor before the Depression, and it just got worse after. So, yeah, he was basically, their lives of crime were kind of the only lives a lot of those people had. It was either that or be a sharecropper like his dad was. And even the coal miners were like, oh, God, thank God I'm not a sharecropper. You know, it was the bottom of the, like, because if the crops came in and you didn't have a good yield, well, the guy who owned the land got all the money for the crops, and what you were planning on eating, well, fuck you. You know, it was almost like you didn't have access to cash in sharecropping. It was really bad. It's basically sharecropping was a form of slavery they came up with after the Civil War, and then they just extrapolated it out all over the South. So it was like a way we can still have slaves kind of, but we're not responsible for them anymore. You know, that wonderful shit. So, yeah. So where they grew up, like, this was the choice. It was this or like sharecropping or something. And for women, there was like no choice. It's just like find a guy that only hits you occasionally, you know, those horrible lives that they lived back then. And
I hope you only want 8 children.
Yeah. I hope we can only feed 8, you know. Have kids. It's cheaper than hiring help. And sometimes they die and you don't have to pay for them anymore. It's like, what? It's like the Middle Ages, you know. It's like, what are we talking about? All true. But yeah, so the Barrow Gang, they had a lot of money. It was him and his older brother and Bonnie, and then there were some other people in and out. But that prison that he got sent to for 2 or 3 years and got raped violently in and all that, he raided that prison and released as many of the guys in prison as he wanted to, because he was thinking about just having an army of criminals. That was so. I mean, these people, there weren't a lot of long-term plans here. This was a pretty short term. This occurred over the period of 2 years. This doesn't go on like 15 years or something. But yeah, they raided 2 National Guard armories and stole BARs and grenades, and so they were basically equipped like a small platoon. And those were top. That'd be like someone stealing like a saw nowadays, or whatever the new infantry weapons or the big weapons are, and running around the country robbing banks.
Yeah.
But see, the thing was, like back then, you didn't have there was no federal law enforcement. You had the FBI, or a form of it, but they were just there to provide investigative assistance to police. They had no authority. That's where guys like the Kevin Costner character and those people came in, because they were like hired hands. It's like, yeah, go kill these people because we can't do it officially. And of course, we can't cross state lines for some fucking reason. Like, when I hear that now, it's like, well, if you want to rob a bank, just hit the Oklahoma line and you're free to go. It's like, wouldn't there be people waiting on the other side? I mean, I know we still have jurisdictions nowadays, but I don't think like the cops just like turn off the lights. Let's go get a cup of coffee. You know, I think if the violent killers are running through, they just keep following them, or they radio ahead. I don't know if they had radios.
Let's baton toss off this.
Yeah. But yeah, so these guys they had wild shootouts with the police. That's why Bonnie and Clyde died so violently. Because when they finally cornered them, it was like 12 guys, also with BARs and other like military weapons that they got like special permission from. Hamer knew a senator or something, and he got special permission to get all this stuff from the army. And so, yeah, when they found Bonnie and Clyde, they had like 3 BARs in the car and over 1,000 rounds of ammunition, a sawed-off shotgun, a bunch of pistols. So that's why when they went at them, because it's almost seen as like, oh, it's unfair, they just ambushed him. It's like, oh, no, you go hard at these people because they're going to come back at you with the same or greater firepower than you have. And the reason they were successful bank robbers was because they had a couple good drivers, and they were outgunned the police like 10-1. Because those police had like little revolvers, like, pew, pew, you know, and these guys are like just using sawn-off BARs to run through the country. And believe it or not, they didn't really steal a lot of money. It's like a lot of those banks didn't have like millions of dollars in them. Yeah, so that say they were having to constantly rob and re-rob places, and sometimes they would drive up to 1,000 miles a day in the 30s, which like that's 1,000 miles of bumpy roads, and driving at night, you're literally taking your life into your own hands. Like, I don't know if we're gonna drive off the road or something. And so yeah, they were very miserable by the time they got set up by that guy's dad, which actually really happened. That's how it really went down. Like, they were almost ready to give up, because it's like, this is not sustainable, because they're moving from here. They were everywhere from South Texas to the Carolinas to Michigan to Minnesota to Indiana. They were like moving in this big circuit around the country, and they were in Iowa. They picked up a lot of wounds and damage when they got surrounded by the cops in Iowa. Of course, they made it out of that one somehow. That's where his brother got killed. So that part was true, but they didn't cover the prison break or the heavy duty fire or the raid on a US
Two
arsenal.
national armies.
Yeah, it's like, wow, that can't be easy. Or maybe it was back then. I don't know. The world was so weird back then.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah,
it was
communication was slower, so if you just if you had the drop on somebody, you can make something happen.
Yeah, because I think nowadays, if you tried that, they would hit an alarm and Apaches would show up or something or not. I don't know. I mean, look what the guys did at the Capitol last year. It's like, I didn't think that could happen. I figured if people started illegally coming into the U.S. Capitol, there'd just be guys on the roof I thought the level, but maybe they didn't want to do that. I don't know.
Some stuff that I've seen at an actual armory island. Like, there's the way things are responded for. It's like, well, I mean, you have stuff at your hand that if you want to take things in your own hand, you can, but you're supposed to let the security forces do their thing, the security guards and stuff. That's what you're supposed to do.
So don't immediately go outside with a rocket propelled grenade. Maybe fired into a house by mistake. People eating dinner, getting incinerated. Like, that doesn't look good in the press.
There's a guy shooting up the parking lot. Quick, get the Mark V grenade launch, automatic grenade launcher. See if this baby works.
Bump, 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 bump. So did you get him? I don't know. He was blown to bits. I mean, we have bullet holes in the building, but the actual guy was.
And we accidentally blew up the entire parking lot.
Oh yeah. And it'll cost $1 million to replace it, because he cratered it down to the soil where it can't be filled in. But I don't know. Anyway, it's crazy when you hear that story. It's like, they just, because today it would be the equivalent of stealing shit like that and going around robbing banks. But with the kind of communications we have now, you wouldn't make it very far. But back then, you could drive around the country. Back then, if you got in trouble in a county where you owed people money, you just moved to the next town. What's your name? Oh, Joe Smith. Oh, welcome, Joe. You want to work at the local granary? And you can have a whole other family 10 miles away. Nobody knows. So, yeah. Weird time. Good movie, though.
Yeah.
A fun educational movie.
A product of the 60s.
And a movie about how to, in some ways, make a movie. A lot of cool stuff there.
So I think the only other movie from the 60s that I really have the most appreciation for is
Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah. That was that was 64. So.
Well, there's a lot of movies from the 60s I like. I'm trying to think of. I like The Wild Bunch. I like the guys riding the motorcycles. We're just talking about it.
Easy Rider.
Yeah, I liked Easy Rider. For the same reason I like this. It's like, oh, this is a time capsule movie. It's like, and this probably never existed, but it's like someone's idea of what it was like to ride around the country then.
I don't know. It's like all those Good and the Bad and the Ugly, rest are a few dollars more, or is Fistful of Dollars. Those are those 60s, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah. Yeah, those are good. 2001, which was actually a movie that could have been made in the 60s or today, and it would know. It's like, okay. And then kind of movies that transition from the 60s, like A Clockwork Orange, still very much kind of in the 60s. I know it was made in the 70s, but Spartacus is a cool movie. Ben-Hur is a cool movie.
just getting all those Kubrick ones in there.
Yeah. Ben-Hur wasn't Kubrick.
No, but like Spartacus and
Yeah, Spartacus was. Well, he's a good filmmaker.
2001. So yeah.
I'm think of who my other favorite directors are from that. Yeah, I've seen a lot. There's a lot of those movies I'll rewatch. 3 days, or so was it 3 days in May, about where the general tried to overthrow the U.S. government. That's a kind of an odd one. People don't know about that. It's like Michael Douglas, or it was Michael Douglas's dad. Kirk Douglas was in that.
Oh.
Or was it 7 days in May? Anyway, this guy uncovers a conspiracy to try to overthrow the government. Oh, what are some other
Is that,
good ones?
is that Smedley Butler? Is that the one where like some Marine guy they wanted to like insert as president or something?
No, that was a real thing. That was before World War II.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, Smedley Butler was a real guy, and
Yeah.
he went to the papers and said, "Well, the DuPont family and all the other rich people came to me and said we're going to overthrow the government, put you in as a figurehead." And because he was the guy who was very anti-war because he fought in a war, and he was like, "Yeah, screw this." He fought in World War One. He was like, "Yeah, this is a waste of life, and only rich people benefit from it." Don't think he's wrong. What's the other big '60s movie like tentpole? The Manchurian Candidate.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great, weird, old movie. It's came out like a week after the Kennedy assassination. Like, oh yeah, this is gonna go over great. Or maybe it was a couple of years later, but I know that Frank Sinatra was really worried about the themes of this movie with what just happened to, John Kennedy. It's like, do we need to make this movie? And they're like, oh yeah. And then all those Hitchcock movies are from the '60s.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Good ones. And then you got like Rear Window. I think that was from the '60s. And North by Northwest.
Yeah, I think fuck, Norman Bates. What? Psycho. Yeah, that's in
Psycho
60.
was 1960. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you believe that was 1960?
Yeah. Well, I think
Heads were probably exploding around that movie. Like, holy shit.
yeah, well, it's like because they could have shot in color, but like to save money, they shot in black and white. So that's kind of
Yeah.
If you think about it that way, it's like, oh, okay, they're. So it's not like, sometimes it's like when I think about like Doctor Strangelove, it's like that doesn't feel like a movie from the. Actually, that feels like an older movie because it's in black and white. It's like, this got to be like from the 50s. Like, oh, it's 64. Okay, that's a
Yeah.
lot later than I thought. And also like the bomber special effects are a little bit left to be desired. It's like,
Well, it almost adds to the charm of
yeah.
It's like, because everything's so like the General Jack Ripper and all his dialogue with Pink Panther.
Colonel Bat Guano.
No, that's the guy. That's the guy at the base. The British guy.
Yeah, but just that. Yeah, but they're just like somebody's called Colonel Bat Guano.
And then what was the guy? What was Slim Pickens? What was his character's name? Like Kong or something. He had a weird name.
Oh yeah. Fuck yeah.
And Darth Vader was in the back. Yeah, those movies. But those aren't really like. This was like what they call the Bonnie and Clyde and those Peck and Paul. Weren't those called like New Hollywood or something?
I don't know. I can't remember.
They took like some cues from French New Wave and all that.
Yeah.
I know there's some whole artsy fartsy road I could go down with this that I'm not, because I just learned something in a class once. This is there's a distinct point with this where this movie changes a lot of things.
Yeah, I think I'm a little fuzzy on like kind of 60s era stuff. I think in 70s that's where you can really like, oh, when movies started becoming huge and
to the head type movies. Yeah.
Well, it's like movies were like kind of the genres were spread out, the sophistication and the execution was just so ahead of its class. And everything was, there's still like Disney nonsense, but there's all this other stuff too.
Yeah,
it wasn't just all like the best movies ever made.
Wasn't Raging Bull like around this time?
That was 1980.
Well, that was 1980. Okay. What's the one I'm thinking about then? It was like in the 70s, 60s era. Well, no, The Godfather came not long after this, a couple years.
Yeah, I think that's early 70s. I can't remember though.
Because a lot of the movies from like this movie,
I don't know. When I think of a 70s movie, I immediately go to Jaws. Like that's the movie of the 70s for me. So
that's a popular movie.
yeah.
It was genre breaking in other ways. Because I always think of movies like from the mid '60s to like this late or to the early '80s as like that's an era of films. They all kind of have that same look, same color palette, whether they're period pieces or set in modern times. They all seem to have that. And women have much more prominent roles other than just people to have sex with and slap around like they're actually characters. Or they're not like your secretary or something. Like that was a big shift. Which now we like take that for granted. Well, yeah, of course, but back then it's like, oh no.
When did The Prisoner come out? Was that 70s or was that 60s?
That's 60s.
Okay.
TV show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was in the 60s.
Because that kind of style I always associate with the 60s, but like I don't necessarily with that mod style or whatever. All that's weird shit. You know, like, oh, this must be something from the 60s. Huh.
Same year. That's like 60s sci-fi. Like that's the same. Yeah, you can always tell 60s sci-fi. The only thing that's genre breaking there is like the Star Trek. Even though
yeah.
60s, but it's also the stories were like way ahead of their time. That and Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
They were way ahead of their time, but they still had that look.
Yeah.
But you can actually watch those where it's like some of this other stuff you wouldn't watch. The Prisoner is really cool. Everyone should watch that and do a doctoral dissertation on it. But
also, like, but even the decade before, I can't think of like a movie from the 50s, but like, there's some stuff from the 40s because isn't it like Wizard of Oz? That's the 40s.
Yeah, it was the 30s, I think.
You know, a lot of the early Disney stuff is in the 40s. Watch that one with the Life and Times of Colonel Blimp. That was in the 40s. There's not really like a movie necessarily I can think of like from the 50s, but.
Oh, Wizard of Oz is 1939.
Huh. Jesus.
Yeah, that goes way back.
What's Casablanca? Is that 40s?
Oh, that's almost 50s, I think. Because wasn't that a movie about World War II?
Yeah, it was.
I think that got made in the... That's 42. I was made during World War II.
Jesus.
Okay.
Huh.
I'm off, and I've watched that movie a couple times.
All right, Google, like, what's the movie of the 50s? Just, like, put in movies of the 50s, see what we come up with, because I can't think of one.
An American Graffiti?
No, that was 60s.
I know. No, that was...
Or was it still 70s?
That was in the 80s, I think.
No, because he did Star Wars in the 70s.
Oh. Well, let's see. What do we got? 100 best 100. How about give me, like, the top 10? Okay, 10 Commandments. I like that movie.
Yeah. I mean, I'm nostalgic. I don't necessarily like the movie. It's a nostalgic.
No, I like that movie. That's actually cool.
Yeah.
Trying to think. A Star is Born, the original one. This is too many. I need a top 10. This is like 100 movies, and half of them are like French cinema.
Oh.
I'm trying to think if there's a movie. Okay, 25. That'll. Okay, there's a few of these I've seen. 12 Angry Men, Rear Window.
Okay.
Vertigo.
Okay.
Stalag 17. That's a real good. North by Northwest. 7 Samurai.
Okay.
Oh, Bridge Over the River Kwai, 1957. I've seen that.
Huh. Okay.
On the Waterfront. That's a good one.
Never actually seen that movie, but I know it's
a good movie. It's
okay. I just know the quote. Like it was that's the one that used to be a contender, right? And everyone thinks it's a boxing movie.
Yeah, no, it's actually when I took a labor studies course, it was like 1950s anti-union propaganda. The bad guys in there are the dock workers unions guys, and the hero is like the ex-boxer who's going to show these terrible unionists, the communists. The Seventh Seal. Now that's get into that's Swedish.
That's French, right? Oh, it's Swedish. Okay.
Ingmar Bergman. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I've watched it. It's like with a 15-year-old Max von Sydow. Rio Bravo. That's
Okay.
59.
Okay, so John Wayne territory is like the 50s and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
Rashomon. We watched that.
Mhm.
1950. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm
Yeah.
going to go through the ones I've seen,
Yeah.
and I've seen a lot more than I thought. So
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just yeah. There's nothing in my mind that congeals to like this is a 50s movie. So okay.
well, a lot of those Bible epics and stuff that we like, or I like, come from there. And I didn't know. I thought Rear Window was early 60s. I was wrong. So it's probably late 50s.
When Psycho come out then? I thought it was
1960.
okay. 90s. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because then you'd have like Rear Window and The Birds and shit. That was all in the 50s, but it was in color, so that's why it's kind
Yeah.
of you would think Psycho would be older than those movies, but it's not.
Wizard of Oz, 1939, $2.7 million budget. Depression bucks. The most expensive movie made at that time.
Remember that guy? The same year he made fuck. What's Frankly Scarlet? I Just Don't Give a Damn.
Oh, Gone with the Wind?
Yeah, Gone with the Wind. He made it the same year.
Yep.
Or at least they came out the same year. I don't know if they made that same time, but
I'm not sure. That's just a lot of money for a movie. 1939.
yeah, same director.
Yep. I've seen that once, and it's fine.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
It's
Just
fine.
that one scene where the house is burning down.
I watched the whole thing. I mean, it's like a lot of movies. I do not watch a lot of movies from the 30s, and there aren't a lot around to watch that you can find that are worth watching. But see, The Wizard of Oz is cool because it's almost timeless because it's so weird. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, this could be from any era. I mean, the special effects are kooky, but you're kind of just sucked into it. Whereas Gone with the Wind, it's about the Civil War, but it's got good actors and actresses, but it's a lot of stiff dialogue, and it's kind of like, why are these people walking around like robots? But it has beautiful sets and it looks cool
Yeah.
for that era.
That was a thing that they were doing. They had on the visual effects artists react, and they had a thing from the Wizard of Oz that was pretty cool because they showed like how they made the tornado, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I would never guess they did that. It was basically like a spool of cloth
Oh, really?
and that they just like spun, and then like they had like dust at the bottom and the top, and they would just like release it out, and they would like, and it was just a spinning roll of cloth. I was like, oh wow, huh.
Ultimate practical effect.
Yeah. And they just had like sticks in it to kind of like from one at the top and one at the bottom to like make it weird, do the weird twisty movement. So
The only thing I know about movies of that era, especially like the 30s, 40s, and 50s, was it's like you know why the sets burned down all the time. Because they would have to light the shit out of that. They would basically have searchlights on those
Yeah.
sets. Because that film was, that's the way you
oh yeah,
got that look.
and back when film was flammable.
Yeah, and film would, very flammable. Yeah, because I've seen like photos in black and white of like, this is the lighting, and it took like 4 guys running it, like, and it's just a bunch of light bulbs on this football field size thing when they're doing a big scene. And
Yeah,
it's like, oh my god, how much power were they drawing? They had that hooked up to a nuclear reactor. It's like, Jesus Christ. And that's when the makeup was like, they were making it out of clay so it won't melt. But yeah, those were hot sets. They don't have that problem anymore, do they?
I mean, it depends on how you're lighting them. Nowadays, they have a lot of like,
Just LED panels and stuff.
yeah, and even like fluorescent lighting. Because I know like, early Ridley Scott stuff, he liked to shoot with fluorescence, and that was just made the sets way cooler and made it a different looking.
Yeah.
Different look for the movie, and it also worked for sci-fi stuff too. But yeah,
It's futuristic.
yeah, I also gave it an even flat lighting, and you could do stuff with it, but it also made the sets way cooler. So that was nice.
I love the Misery documentary on the Blade Runner, the 84 Blade Runner sets. Because he had guys running around with really expensive cameras, a bunch of lighting, and they're just shooting fire hoses up in the air for all the exterior shots. It's always raining, almost always, or wet. And yeah, those guys hated that because the crew's just covered in water.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, that looks awful.
Yeah, I think they're called Kino lights, and those are the ones that are just the sun
Yeah,
blaring down on you. But they have like stuff but you're not supposed to just like have the bare bulb just shining at people. They're supposed to be like, you're supposed to put like gels and stuff in front of it to have color lighting or diffuse the lighting in a special way. You're not supposed to just blast your actors anymore. But it depends what you're doing. Sometimes you still need to blast the actors.
that was a problem David Lynch had when he was making Dune. Was because the production company, the De Laurentiis production company, they just had a bunch of that old shit from Italy. Like, yeah, shoot it with this. It's like these huge light. I mean, they had the sets catch on fire all the time, and the actors were fucking miserable because they were just shooting it. Because those could articulate, like all the bulbs could turn, they had different levers and stuff. But yeah, they were constantly had set fires all this. They're shooting in Mexico or something, so it's already hot.
Yeah.
And then you're, bringing this 1950s shit in that they had in Italy. Yeah, make this modern sci-fi movie. It's like, good luck. This is an Alan Smithy film now. I'm done with it. He won't even talk about that movie.
Yeah.
I would like to hear.
I mean, I don't know. David Lynch really doesn't talk about any of his movies, really.
Yeah, he specifically won't. If you ask him about that, he'll just be like, nope, nope. I'm not talking about it.
What do you think? Well, that seems right. Maybe.
It's all a dream.
Or is it? Uh-oh.
Time to go to France and smoke some more cigarettes.
Give me the monkey.
Oh, David Lynch. Is he doing anything lately?
I don't know.
Because I know he did the Twin Peaks thing, and then
Yeah. I mean, the latest thing I saw was that weird monkey short he did for Netflix, but beyond that, I don't know what he's doing.
yeah, that was fun.
You
I
know,
was
maybe
watching that, and it's like, yep, this is David Lynch, and oh, he's actually a character in this.
and I bet he took some time off with 2020 because there's no productions going on. So,
Yeah.
who knows?
But all the movies are going to come out now,
Yeah.
and it's
Except
going to be great.
Dune's getting delayed to October.
Yeah, it's fun. I know. It's the only reason I got HBO Max.
Is it still coming out in both, or now do you have to just go to the theaters?
I think you're going to have to go to the theaters.
Oh, okay.
I think they're doing reshoots. That's what the rumor I heard.
Oh,
Will I tell you about the test screenings for that they had?
no. But also, I don't expect any test screening coming out of that movie to be good.
Well, it wasn't. People weren't necessarily like, "This sucks." They were like, "What the fuck did I just see?"
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, but these were people that like knew Dune.
Oh, okay.
These were like people that were like, "Oh, I'm a big fan of the books," and kind of like the David Lynch version when they came out. Like, what the fuck did I just see? It's like, I don't know. You got a cool visualization of Dune. Pay no attention to the story. Very cool imagining of what that world might look like. But yeah,
I haven't been disappointed with that director yet, so
I don't think I will with this.
Yeah.
Either. I mean, I'm not
it
disappointed with the David Lynch Dune because I'm a big fan of the book. I wouldn't recommend that as an entree to Dune, but it's like, well, here's something someone tried very hard at, and
I don't know. There's a lot of cool things in Dune. It's
Yeah.
it's clumsy though, but it's still cool.
yeah, no, they did I think in terms of visualizing that world, they did a great job. But they made that movie at a time where you don't do like 3 movies, like we're going to tell the whole story shit. No, they did like, I mean, they made The Hobbit into like an animation film that was 45 minutes back in that similar era. So yeah, they don't do the long form now because it cost too much damn money back then, and you never make it back on that. So they had sequels, but they didn't have like continuous, like part 1, part 2, or not very many.
No.
Godfather kind of got away with that because
Yeah, I usually like movies that were like serialized, were like small budget genre stuff, not necessarily like big epic movies, because big epic movies were just that. It's like, here's a big 3-hour movie, we're all gonna go see it, and then that's it.
Yeah. And we're all going to go to sleep. We're all going to drink. All right. Well, that's all I got for this week. So this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon. Goodbye, America.